was poor planning on my part.
Was it? Hello there.
It's
welcome to
just an optical illusion. It's very strange. No, I looked down. It looked like it was right at the rim, but it's not. The water is. It's like an inch away.
Limited life experience drinking water out of a cup. That's.
I mean, it's not beer. I don't know what it's supposed to look like.
Hey there, welcome to AV Rant, folks. It's behind the scenes there. In case you couldn't tell.
You didn't think this was an audio podcast, did you?
Oh well, heck, we've had some that aren't far off. Yeah. So behind the scenes, that means you're going to get audio dropouts potentially. We're just using Google Hangouts here. Going to be talking about images that you may or may not be able to see. Probably, it's usually working these days, not that badly, but you don't get the little blur effect as the things change like you do in the completed 2-hour video version of these podcasts.
I'm just a green screen on this one, though, right?
Well, no, because it flips back and forth because it's the Google Hangouts thing.
Oh, it does that.
But I got the green screen next to me. Thumb too far. There we go. There it is. All right.
Which thumb to use? It's got to be this thumb, right?
No,
I got it that way,
that's
though.
to you. Yeah.
That's to you.
There you go.
And this is to me. I got it.
Nobody's ever going to see that. So we're gonna start the actual podcast here. So yeah, if you want to see things cleaned up, look for the full version, the completed version, not this nonsense over here.
I don't understand.
What the heck is that?
I don't know. It wasn't my side.
Are they testing the freaking fire alarm?
It sounds like
great timing. How loud is that on your end?
I can barely hear it.
Barely hear it? All right. Well, maybe we live with it.
Well, let's wait for a second at least. Give it.
Well, it's not my normal fire alarm. That's what, like, if it's real, it's what was this? Testing it?
Sounds like, is it 9 o'clock there? Maybe. No, wait. It would be.
It's coming upon 6. No, it's not. I don't have a cuckoo clock. I don't know what that is.
Maybe somebody gave you a cuckoo clock.
Why would they be doing it now? Ugh, what timing? Whatever.
Maybe
if you could,
maybe what they're doing is walking up and down your halls. They're like, I know he lives in the building someplace.
Pretty much. No, it's
just hitting the pan.
It's my intercom on the other side of my bedroom door. There. That's what does it. But oh my goodness, ridiculous.
Okay, so this is what we're gonna have to do. We'll start the podcast.
Yeah.
You can only talk when there's no bells. And then you have to manually clock every bell out.
Now I can talk for a little bit. Now I can talk a little bit more.
That's right.
No, I'm not doing that. Well, hopefully that either goes away or does not get worse. So, yeah. Fancy. I thought it stopped.
No. So while we're not doing the podcast, what font did you do? The font thing at the bottom here?
I didn't do this. This is Ash. We're going to talk about Ash.
I know, but what font is he using? Because
I don't know.
I don't like it.
Oh, you don't like that font?
I don't
or
like
typeface, as the case
might be. Typeface, yeah, the font that he's using. The AVRant, of course, is amazing and excellent and everything else.
Yes.
But I guess I've never really.
Oh, really? You don't like that, eh?
No, that's just.
He did one at first where my Twitter handle there came out not quite so legible.
Oh, I thought it stopped that time for sure.
I know. I've never heard it make that particular chime before.
It's going to go on for at least a minute or two. So I mean, it's not quite 9 o'clock.
I know it's not, but it's just frustrating.
No, I'm the one that's going to have to delete all the audio at the front of this thing. I guess you have to delete video too. For the
oh yeah.
So I saw the preview for Glass.
Oh yeah. I haven't watched Split.
I think it spoiled Split for me.
Yeah, I haven't watched Split, so I didn't want to do anything yet.
I don't think you should watch the second one, the one that just came out. You shouldn't watch that one.
Oh, the second trailer.
Second trailer, yeah.
Right.
So I'm interested in seeing Split now, though, and I love what's his name, Professor
Unbreakable.
Unbreakable, I thought was okay.
It's just the ending. It was good until the ending. Like not the reveal.
You mean
ending,
the twist?
The text ending.
Oh, right.
That's the part that got me. I'm like, why is this movie ending with text?
Yeah,
it's not great. All right. Well, you know what? That bell's just going to keep going. So, yeah, I guess we mention it.
Okay.
All right. Let's switch over to Tom. You can
5
start
minutes and 10
podcast
seconds.
whenever you please. There. All right.
Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H, this is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And yes, faintly in the background, there is something going on with my fire alarm system. We tried to wait a little while in our little
reminds me of
preamble.
You ever see Bringing Up Baby with Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Oh my God.
I haven't watched it.
At the tone, the time will be 7:28.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of. We just watched Bringing Up Baby with the kids.
That's
it was amazing. I love that movie so much.
I apologize. This was clearly not planned. I've never actually heard my fire alarm intercom thing make this particular chime before. If the alarm's actually going off, it's a lot more rapid and loud. So I don't know what's going on. Hopefully it won't be too distracting. You'll just tune it out in your brain eventually if it goes on the entire podcast. I do apologize, but we got no other time to move this recording time. So here we go, and we have a gazillion questions. So
yeah, we do. And I have a new pop filter. See?
Oh,
it attaches to the mic. It's not that big old round thing.
Uh-huh.
I'm very excited about it. I have no idea if it's going to work very well. The reports on whatever were so somebody who listens to this podcast, because I don't listen to it, will have to tell me if they notice a bunch of like plosives and stuff.
Oh, I see him.
Yeah, because that's what it's supposed to fix. All right, this is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ring a bell a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
Then Rob will come out in the hallway and find out what's going on and answer your AV questions. Hopefully, you live somewhere near Canada. That's where Rob lives.
That's a big country.
It's a big country. There's not that many people there, though. So,
It's true.
Got some space. Anyhow, get your questions answered. Email us at question@avrant.com. You come to www.avrant.com and leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast. Twitter, YouTube.com/AVRant. We will completely ignore your question and or block you because that seems to be what's going on over there. I need to drink some of my water. If you want to reach us directly, it's rob@avrant.com. His Twitter is @FirstReflect. I guess it's on the screen if you're watching the YouTube version.
If you're watching YouTube, we have a new lower third. We're going to be thanking Ash multiple times, but thank you, Ash, for that new lower third.
Yep. And you want to reach me directly, it's tom@avrant.com or @avrant_Tom for my Twitter. All right. Start the podcast. We always want to thank our listeners for the week. To become a listener a week, all you have to do is support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is by going to www.avrant.com and click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. That will take you to a PayPal donation site. And this week, we will thank Robert for his donation that will go into our coffers to help pay for our... It's gone. Did you mute yourself?
I muted myself there momentarily. I heard sirens coming, so maybe...
Maybe you should leave the building?
No, that's not even our protocol in here. If it's
What do you mean it's not your protocol? If it's a fire, you don't leave the building?
If it's on the floor, you go 2 floors down. If it's not on your floor, you don't even move. Or not within 2 floors of you, you don't even move.
But what if it's below you?
Well, then it'd be smoke coming up or something.
And then
I don't care. It's never real. It's a concrete building. What the heck is going to catch on fire anywhere?
Rob's got fake news, fake fire news.
It's never real. That's why they say don't even. But we used to leave the building, and then we had. It's there's always a false alarm.
It sounds like pandemonium over there. What are you talking about?
The fire department comes if the fire alarm goes off. This is what we pay them to do. It's fine. It's never real.
So I will say right now, and I'm in all seriousness, if Rob dies in this fire, I am very sorry that I laughed as much as I just did. And I am sorry also for all the jokes I'm about to make.
I'm not even that high up. I could dangle off my balcony if it comes to that. I'll be fine.
All right. More hints about where Rob lives. Someplace in the first couple of floors. All right. We want to thank Robert for his donation. Those monies will go into our coffers to help pay for hosting fees and apparently pop filters, which costs like $2. So thank you very much, Robert.
Yes, Robert, thank you very much for the donation. That was a lengthy way to get there, but there you are. Thank you, Robert.
We also want to thank our 61 patrons over at patreon.com. Patreon is a website where you can sign up to have a monthly donation taken out of your bank account and process through them and give it to us. Happens once a month. The minimum is $1. The maximum is infinity. We want to thank all 61, but in particular, we want to thank Jorge or George. I'm thinking it's probably Jorge, who let us know that he was one of our patrons. So thank you very much, Jorge, and all the 60 other patrons.
Yeah, that is patreon.com/AVRant podcast. If you would like to sign up, thanks so much to our 61 patrons. And Jorge, thank you for being one of them.
I also want to thank any other listener that can support the podcast in any other way. It doesn't have to be financial. You just have to figure out some way to do it and then let us know. I'm going to readjust my mic. So We want to thank Michael, who let HSU or Shoe know that he bought a VTF3 Mark V HP thanks to advice from AV Rant. He'll be replacing a pair of VTF2 Mark IVs they had co-located for more output. So that's good. Now you just need another one. So thank you, Michael.
That's right. Michael, thank you very much for the support and congratulations on your purchase.
And since we hit 600 episodes, we asked our listener Ash to create a new logo, and he did. So we want to thank Ash for our new 600 logo and the lower third that if you're watching us on YouTube, you are enjoying right now.
Yes, we love Ash's artwork, so thank you so much for doing that. Really, really appreciate it, Ash. Thank you.
My microphone keeps dipping. All right, so
too heavy with its new pop filter.
It's not the new pop filter. It's because I tried to. I love my shock mount. Because it means I don't have to worry about it that much. But the shock mount is that I want it to be straight, but there's no straight on it. It's very annoying. And when I try to put it straight in order for it to be so that visually it's as small as possible, I have to turn to the side, but then it's too heavy and the whole thing falls down. So it's a first world problem. In news this week, we have Vizio's flagship P-Series Quantum TV became available last week. It's only available in one size, 65 inches, and the price is $2,100. Reviewed.com seems to be the only news outlet that got a review sample in advance, and while they proclaim it to be the best Vizio TV ever and confirm that it delivers more than the promised 2,000 nits of peak brightness for eye-searingness that we all love, they also caution
That's right.
They also caution that even with 192 zones of local dimming, the black level is raised, especially in HDR mode, with a rather disappointing 0.15 nits for HDR black on an ANSI checkerboard pattern, which means it's not black. It's just
it is not. No, I mean you're aiming for 0.05 under the premium. What is the name of the thing? I've forgotten already. The Ultra HD Premium specification. They're aiming for 0.05 in the black level, which still is slightly raised. In a completely black room, you'd still see that is not true black. But yeah, they measured 0.15, so that's actually significantly higher. Kind of gray in those blacks.
Yeah. So it's mostly recommended for bright rooms with ambient light, at least for from this. And at the moment, there's only this one review. So this one review said that. So
yeah, we'll see if other reviewers get different results, hopefully. But nonetheless, it might just be a really good bright room TV. That might be what it turns out to be, which isn't such a bad thing to be. So there you go.
It's awfully big. It's big. Samsung announced that begin mass producing micro LED displays similar to the wall that was shown at CES in September ahead of expected availability for, quote, wealthy customers. I guess not quote, it's like in parents, wealthy customers in 2019. All right. So this is the thing where it is, little LED lights that you put on your wall, like you can build a display. Is it done?
It's done. They must have turned it off. Told you, false alarm.
Yeah. You don't know. Maybe the alarm guy who's ringing the bell got burnt up by the fire.
I guess that's my new fire alarm. At least it's not as terrible as the old. The old one was like you couldn't even think. So yeah.
Well, you were supposed to think, I better get out of this building. This noise is annoying. Now you think, oh, that's not so bad. I'm going to stick around and finish my podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely, I will. I always will. Yeah.
Anyway, so this is this thing that you can build like an entire wall, these little LEDs, and it would be a display. So you can scale it up as much as you want. They're saying it will be a luxury display, but also said it won't be as expensive as many people expected / feared. Mm-hmm. I really have to drink some water. No solid details on price or size, but just the plans themselves are being announced much sooner than anticipated. So we don't know anything other than, hey, yeah, I know you guys thought we might actually do this for rich people. We just totally going to do this for rich people because rich people are already asking for it.
Yeah. So yeah, these are the micro LED displays. So this is it's not the same tech as that cinema LED display that the Onyx that they've announced, where they're actually installing in full size cinemas the 34-foot wide screen. That's a different thing. Those are LEDs, one LED per subpixel. These are micro LEDs. So this was the 146-inch display that they had, the wall that they showed at CES. No word if it's going to be a smaller version for this luxury micro LED display that they're actually going to sell to consumers in 2019, but just the mere fact that you will be able to buy the thing, it's much sooner than anticipated. It was thought there was at least 3, possibly as much as 10 years away. Wow. But it's in fact 1 year away, so really not too bad.
Sony held a press event on Tuesday, July 31st in New York, where they officially announced their new flagship Master Series TV models, the A9F OLED and the Z9F LCD. They touted a Netflix calibration mode and auto cal using Calman software for all release. Official price is not announced. Netflix calibrated mode.
Yes, the Netflix calibrated mode is something they were touting quite a bit. And so it only works with Netflix. And it is exclusive to Sony because it is a Sony Netflix partnership that created this thing. And they're like, the reason they called it the Master Series is like, this is as close as you can get to a mastering display from a consumer display. That's their goal with this one OLED and this one LCD.
At this very, very moment.
What's that?
Infinite Gary is ordering one.
Oh, I know.
Now he's literally
unquestionably
he stopped listening to this podcast.
He doesn't like bright and he doesn't like HDR, so the chances that he actually will want this are actually kind of low. Right. But yeah, no, the mastered for Netflix or Netflix calibrated mode. Supposedly the idea is, hey, it's a one button thing. You put it into that mode, and you are seeing Netflix the way that the Netflix people want you to see it. In my opinion, it probably amounts to turning off the soap opera effect because they actually harped on that for a little bit. I'm like, the rest of it, if you have a cinema mode, your contrast and brightness and color settings should be pretty accurate already.
Yeah.
But anyway, good. I'm happy to have it. I wish it was actually applicable to things other than only Netflix and only the built-in Netflix, right? Only the built-in app. But anyway, that's what they're doing. Kind of a cool thing.
It seems very stupid. I'll be honest with you. It seems like a DSP mode on a Yamaha receiver. It's like, yeah, it's there, I guess.
A little more useful than that. It's almost like a straight decode mode.
A9F OLED X1 Ultimate Processing Chip, I guess is what is this?
These are sort of the rumored specs. These leaked out early. Hasn't been fully confirmed. Some of it has, but we're doing the things that we're expecting or rumored to be happening.
I guess the new displays will have the Ultimate Processing Chip, whatever that is. The A9F will have 900 nits peak. It's got a 3.2 channel acoustic surface audio plus. The next one's going to be Audio Plus Z.
That's right.
X Audio.
Gotta be X, yeah.
And the option to use a speaker wire binding post in a center speaker mode. So I guess
so the actual surface of the TV itself on these OLEDs is your speaker. It has no other speakers built in, and they've gone back to the kickstand easel design, so the thing does lean back on you. Not a huge fan of that, but that's what they're doing with it. But yeah, the idea is that the entire surface of the OLED vibrates. They now have 3 actuators, a left, center, and a right actuator instead of only 2 actuators. And then
I can't imagine any idea that any boardroom where that idea came out and somebody and say, wait, what? We're gonna vibrate the picture? Isn't that a bad idea?
They vibrate the picture. It works. And interestingly, something some people have requested, which is now they're actually gonna have a pair of binding posts right on the back of the TV,
so they can turn your TV into your center channel.
That's right. You send your receiver's center speaker output via speaker wire. It doesn't have to have a pre-out to the TV, and your TV is now your center speaker. So given that there is so
if you want perfect timbre matching, you're gonna have to buy like 7 of these.
But there's no space at all below this screen, right? There's the teeny tiny little less than an inch thick bezel, so there's nowhere to put even a sound bar. So they're like, all right, I guess your TV is the sound. Yeah.
So it's supposed to be $4,000 for the 55-inch and $5,500 for the 65-inch. The Z9F, the LCD, it'll have the same processor, somewhere between 600 and 1,500 local dimming zones.
Yeah, Sony won't say how many, so people are guessing.
All right. Well, I mean, between 0 and infinity then. First consumer TV rumored to hit 4,000 nit peak. So essentially no need for tone mapping if true. Rumored 3,500 for the 65-inch and 6,000 for the 75-inch.
And I don't think any of those prices are right. I think the OLEDs are too expensive, and I think the LCDs are too inexpensive with those.
I was going to say, because if you look at the price of that compared to the price of the Vizio that we know is 65 inches and is coming out at 2,100, there's no way that Sony is 3,500.
Yeah, the Z9F, no, there's got to be at least 4,500. I mean, the Z9D was when it first came out. So I think the LCD prices that were rumored are $1,000 too cheap, and I think the OLED prices that are rumored are about $500 too expensive. I don't think they actually will charge that much. So, yeah. But that was the big event. Lots of people were talking about it today, and some kind of cool stuff. The Z9F, apparently, they were all touting that being an LCD and using vertically aligned panels, VA panels, the big thing that is usually a problem is as soon as you go to either side, the colors and the contrast drops way off on LCDs. And supposedly, and people have seen it in person now, they're like, they really improved that. It's still not an OLED, but they really improved it. So good on them.
So we'll
'Cause-
probably talk about this next week, but
yeah.
I got a BenQ display in the monitor in for
Oh,
review.
okay.
I can't tell you which one it is right now because I
Yeah.
don't remember.
For
But
your
it's like a
computer, right?
for a computer, yeah, for the gaming computer. So my kids have been using it for gaming. It's 32 inches, and I sit like stupid close to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I sit close enough that I have to like move my head to go from one end to the other. But I am real close, and this is I'm like, this is the first time I thought that 4K really made a huge difference.
Right. And it
And
would
it
when you're
does.
that close to that large a display.
Look,
Sure.
I go back to my 1080p display, which is also pretty big. It's not that big, but it's like a double, the 21 by 9. So it's got like two by 9 screens in one screen, which I really liked. Now that thing looks blurry compared to this other thing. So,
Right.
I mean, I didn't think it would make that much of a difference, but it does look really good. It's got like a simulated HDR mode and stuff like that in it. So, the thing I'm waiting for is I just haven't hooked up the Blu-ray player to it and
Right.
used, looked at real HDR content. I haven't had time.
There was one disappointing thing on those Master Series Sony TVs where no variable refresh rate. Gamers were really hoping for that, of course. Samsung is doing it, but Sony is not, and they confirmed that they are not. So that's it for that.
All right. Excuse me. Comments. David. Do you ever brought a mini DSP? I must say I like Y Dog.
I know you like Y Dog. That's why I put it in there so many times so you could say it.
The mini DSP Y Dog Netflix network to USB bridge, so he can make changes to his mini DSP without having to plug it into his computer with a USB cable every time. He says, bottom line, it works. He can sit on his couch with his laptop and make changes without having to disconnect his mini DSP from his audio system now. But a couple of little quirks. You can't use the Y Dog to update the mini DSP's firmware. That still requires plugging it directly into a computer with a USB cable. And the Y Dog's Ethernet port is only good for controlling the Y Dog and the mini DSP directly. So you can't use it to connect to your home network, only Wi-Fi for that. So there's that.
Yep.
Right.
Well, thank you, David, for letting us know about that device and that ultimately it does what it was designed to do. You can sit on your couch and you can change things on your mini DSP.
Totally needed, and that's a good thing. How much that thing cost? Do we remember?
I think it was $80, $79.
That sounds about right.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Let's get into the questions here because we got a lot. Caesar. Caesar has a Sony 75X940E TV and the Marantz SR6011 receiver. He can't seem to get sound from Sony's built-in apps to play through his Marantz via HDMI, ARC, or audio return channel.
Yeah.
Can we sort it out for him? I'm sure Rob can, but I'm going to tell you right now, dude, you might be beating yourself up about this. I want to give you a pass right now. This is AVRant absolution from guilt about this because invariably it's some combination of HDMI CEC, which is I can't remember what CEC
consumer something display. I'm not sure if it was consumer or control, CEC. Consumer electronics control, consumer something like control.
Anyways, the HDMI CEC that goes on with these things, that's going to be part of it. And the other part is that menus are made by people who apparently have never met another human being. That they put things in the kind of order where you're like, what? It's like going through somebody else's My Documents folder and go, why is this folder under here and this one, So yes, Rob, fix it.
I will attempt to. So first on your Marantz, which makes this way more complicated than it needs to be, although it's kind of like for an enthusiast setup, they give you all the options, but that makes it more complicated. So let's get your Marantz ready for audio return channel first. You want to press the setup button on your remote. You'll want to go to the video section and then the HDMI setup section within the video section. Now there you have three different things all relating to HDMI CEC and HDMI ARC. So there is the HDMI control. That is their name for HDMI CEC.
Okay.
Technically speaking, you do not have to turn that on. On most AV receivers, you do, but on this Marantz, technically you don't because they have an entirely separate HDMI ARC menu, which you can turn on independent of the control. So you for sure have to turn on the ARC. If you turn on the HDMI control, it will automatically turn on the ARC as well. Okay. But you can turn on ARC independent of control if you want to. Then there's a third one that is called TV audio switching. And that is when your AV receiver detects that an audio signal is being sent from your television, it will automatically put itself into the TV audio input mode. for the TV audio so that you do not have to manually put it into TV audio to hear the audio that's being sent from your television via ARC. That is also independent. So you can turn that on so that your TV automatically switches to TV audio. If you do not turn that on, you have to use your remote. And thankfully on the SR6011, they actually put the TV audio amongst the other input buttons. On my SR7010 from the year previous, that TV audio button is kind of hidden up in a different section of the remote. I had to go searching for it.
If you have a Harmony and you wouldn't have to do that last one. You would
if you have a Harmony, you can tell your Harmony to turn your Marantz to the TV audio mode when that's what you want to do as part of your activity.
Right. So if you have a Harmony, what I would do is turn on ARC and then have your Harmony do the rest of it. Because I would leave HDMI control off.
Yes.
Because I don't want whatever the awfulness that could come out of that. It's like opening a portal to hell to get like one soul out. You can't leave that open. That's why the ARC mode is the one to go for, because you're just getting the one person out and then you're leaving all the rest of the demons there.
So theoretically, the only one you need to and probably want to turn on is the ARC in the Marantz. However, I have to warn you, there are some TVs where it won't work. It won't work unless control is also on.
Right.
So if it after we get through what to do in the Sony TV, if it doesn't work, then try turning on the HDMI control part and try turning the TV audio switching also on in the Marantz. It might be necessary. I don't know for sure with your exact TV. Now, in your Sony, two places. You have to first press the home button and go to the settings under that. You have to go to the sound settings and make sure that your digital audio out is set to HDMI. Because by default, it's set to optical, and that might be your problem. So you have to make sure your digital audio out is set to HDMI. Then you have to go to the action menu, because they couldn't put it underneath settings. It has to be in a separate action menu. And there you have to go to your speaker settings within your action menu and set those to external audio system, because otherwise it defaults to playing it out of the TV's built-in speakers. So two things. You have to say your digital audio out is your HDMI. That's under your home and settings. And you have to say your audio system is an external audio system under your speakers under the action menu.
The action menu. That's a well-known menu that is in many other devices.
Right.
Like, often you will find things under the action menu. It's right after the refrigerator menu, which is also
how dark do you want your toast button?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Finally,
bagel switch.
If it still doesn't work after all of those things, and you might have to rewind to go through it all again, if it still doesn't work, there is one last thing, which is that under the settings menu, so home and settings on your Sony, you can go to the external input section, go to the Bravia Sync settings, because Bravia Sync is their name for HDMI CEC, and you might have to turn Bravia Sync control on. Possibly. I don't know. Hopefully not, but maybe. So 3 things you might have to do in your Sony, 3 things you might have to do in your Marantz. I don't blame you for this not working right away. Stupid.
Menus suck. So how can you be sure his Marantz is playing Atmos? The small porthole display only shows which input he's using and the volume. There's usually, and I don't have a Marantz, but I have a Denon, and it's the same company these days. There's usually an info button.
Yes.
That you can hit, and it'll show you what's coming in and what speakers are being used on the way in, what signal is coming in, and then what speakers you're using on the way out. So
that is the way to do it. Of course, that doesn't help you if you aren't watching something on your television where the video is being sent through the Marantz, because it's an on-screen display, right? So it only shows up on your television. So if you would it work if he's watching an app on his TV sending only the ARC back? I'm not sure.
It should, because
because then you're not on the HDMI input where you would see the signal coming out of the Marantz at that point. You're seeing the video from the built-in app. So I think that's the problem, right? I think he's using the built-in app, sending the audio back via ARC. Therefore, he's not seeing the on-screen display if he presses info, because he's not tuned to the HDMI input.
Oh, that's true.
Where the Marantz is. So yeah,
Marantz used to have like a flip down thing where the small port
only on
display.
The 70 series, the 7010 or the 7011 in his case, and he's got the 6011. So the answer actually is the app. You could look this up in the Marantz Control app while things are playing. That'd be the way to do it.
Brandon Brandon has a 5.2.4 setup using Golden Ear speakers. One of the big reasons he opted for Golden Ear is because his TV is above his fireplace, and the slim SuperSat 60C center speaker is one of the few center speakers that would physically fit. He didn't actually audition anything else. He just went with Golden Ear from the jump. But since we've repeatedly mentioned that Golden Ear isn't aiming for strictly linearity and accuracy, he decided to finally audition something else. And Aperian's recent sale got him to order the Veris 2 Grand Towers and Center. That center does not fit. I can tell you that now.
It's definitely taller.
The towers sound amazing, but he doesn't like the large Veris 2 Grand Center at all so far. He says it sounds hollow, and the upper mids and treble are very bright. The towers don't sound that way at all, so he's wondering what could have gone wrong. The center is set up in front of the fireplace mantle. There's a selector switch on the Veris 2 Grand Center for either shelf or cabinet placement. There was only a very slight change in sound between the two and nothing that helped the hollow, bright sounding problem. What should he change? All right. So
this is close to the center that you have, Tom. This is the updated version of it, but
and it's definitely, I mean, it timbre matches really well with these speakers. So I have a hard time.
Hasn't been your experience. Yeah.
Hasn't been my experience at all. So to me, this screams of a room or a placement interaction. You know, it could be that the speaker itself is somehow damaged. I don't know how that could be. But it sounds to me like you're getting some sort of bounce or room interaction that's causing this.
Yeah, I'm not sure what type of fireplace it is. Like most modern fireplaces are like basically have a solid front, but if it's an older fireplace where it actually has like depth to it, where you could put actual wood logs in there, it might be something to do with that. It's like literally ringing around in the hollow of the fireplace now that the speaker is, he says, below his mantle or in front of his mantle, so the sound could be getting into that hollow space of the fireplace itself, but I don't know if his fireplace is even that type.
Yeah, so I mean,
could I be super pedantic?
You could be. I mean, you're gonna be.
Just
I guess I'm gonna allow you to.
I'm not saying this is what you did, but just to cover all bases, did you rerun your room correction? Is it possible you're using the same EQ that was being applied to the Golden Ear Center now on the Aperian Center?
That was my other thought, was that if you
to me,
have
that would explain the bright part of it.
Yeah, Odyssey doesn't often like boost those highs that much, but it can.
It does. It can. Yeah.
Depending on what was happening with your speaker before. So if you haven't rerun Odyssey or whichever, did he say what receiver he has?
I don't recall which receiver he has, but
so
whatever
if you
it
run
is.
your EQ, you need to do that for sure.
Which you probably have, but just covering bases just in case, because it might explain it.
Then what I would do is just physically move it. I would move it into the room, and I would put like pillows on the ground, or a big thick blanket on the ground in front of it, and maybe all around it, and see if that makes a difference. If physically
it's a sealed design, so it's not like a port that's humming or something.
Right.
It is a bit odd. I mean, inherently, that's not the way the speaker sounds. So either it's the EQ thing, it's the placement thing, or you just have a defective unit, which is not utterly impossible. So
no, I mean, it happens. Yeah. So we ask, which voice setting, shelf or cabinet, would be the normal setting if it were a center was just on a stand? I think you actually answered your own question when you said I tried both, because that's the correct setting. I would try both no matter what. Like I had the same experience as you did. Is when I switched the switch, I was like, I don't really notice anything.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would put shelf would be my normal.
Yeah, because the cabinet is trying to compensate for some boundary reinforcement, so it's actually knocking down the upper mid or upper base a little bit, like the lower mid-range. It's knocking that down a little bit in case you had actually recessed it into a cabinet and we're getting a bunch of boundary reinforcement. So shelf is the normal setting.
Yeah. So which center speakers do we, Tom and Rob, use? Well, I mean, right now I have the Veris Grand center, not the two, the first one, the original, the OG. But I have used oodles of center channels. I've had center channels from RBH. I've had center channels from let me see, Axiom. I've had center channels from. I actually just literally tested out center channels from time to time. So I have heard tons of different center channels, but I use the Veris ones.
Yeah, I am using Ascend Acoustics, their Horizon, Sierra Horizon with the RAL ribbon tweeter upgrade. However, my particular Sierra Horizon is actually a custom cabinet that David Fabricant made for me. It is wider and shallower than the regular Sierra Horizon. So that was to give it less depth front to back so that it would fit where I need it to fit. That's what I'm using.
And you just heard a thing that you probably wish you would have heard before you started buying other stuff. You're like, wait, I can get this custom made?
Mm.
Yes, you can. It does cost more, but you
Yes, it
can get it
does.
custom made. Sushmit on Twitter. He asks, have we ever listened to any speakers that use an active digital crossover? If so, what were our impressions? My answer to that is I think so, because I have been to high-end audio shows before, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm positive that something in there had an active digital crossover. My reaction is I don't remember, and I'm sure I didn't like what I heard anyways, because most of the speakers sucked. But an active digital crossover, I don't really think should sound any different than a passive crossover. I mean, that's the whole idea, is that it gives you the
Yeah, you shouldn't be
flexibility
able
to
to
make
hear a crossover.
right.
Something's wrong if you can hear the crossover itself.
The idea is that you can adjust the active crossover is something that can be adjusted for each individual room. It's something that most people neither want nor need. So it's something that I don't know that has a huge market out
Mm.
there.
Yeah, I've heard some Focal professional monitors that
Yeah.
have active digital crossover,
Well,
and
if you ever heard of synthesis system, I guess you've heard active digital
sure,
crossovers too. So
or
I've heard synthesis
the
before.
the darts from
Yep,
Phase
I've heard
Tech.
those as well. So those are two more, and those sounded great. But I
Yeah,
mean, those are professionally calibrated by, trained installers. So I'd expect them to sound good, regardless of the crossover.
so
So,
yeah, I mean, I can't attribute anything I heard to the
yeah.
crossover, right? If those Focal professional monitors that I heard had used a passive crossover instead, I've no doubt that Focal can make that passive crossover and make those speakers sound just as good. It's a design decision that they decided to go with those particular
Right.
monitors. But the crossover itself, I'm not going to attribute good or bad to that. It's design it properly, and either one should be able to work just fine.
So for those of you that are not really familiar with what a crossover does, the
Hmm.
idea is that a driver has limitations. So, you can send a signal to any driver of any size,
Mm-hmm.
of any sound frequency you would like to recreate, and that driver will try to
Yes.
recreate that sound, and will have different levels of success. There is a sweet spot with the driver size and the weight and the materials and everything else that goes into it, the magnet size, everything. That there's a sweet spot where it operates very well
Mm-hmm.
without distorting or changing its shape as it's
Right.
trying to
Moves
push
just
in
like
and
a
out.
piston the way that you want it to.
So the crossover is designed so that you can take two or three or more different drivers and use them in conjunction, where some of the frequencies are going to one driver but not to the other. Some of the frequencies are going to the other driver but not the first one. And there's some frequencies that are being sort of shared,
Mm-hmm.
which are being crossed over. That's where the driver is playing the high end, is its ability to recreate that sound well is starting to taper off. So you lower the volume there and you increase the volume on the other driver, where it too is having problems, but maybe together they're able to boost each other's sounds loud enough so that you get the right volume, and then that driver takes over lower that, where it operates really well.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the crossover does. An active crossover is essentially a crossover that you can change on the fly. Passive
Or it's
crossover,
just one that's electrically powered
sure,
with a power cord,
yeah,
and like digital, of course, means that it's doing it through digital signal processing.
right.
Whereas a passive crossover is literally just made out of capacitors, inductors, and resistors,
Right. So
and
the
you have the
idea here is that
electrical
the
signal going through.
crossover is trying to have all this drivers play as in its sweet spot, its good area. So having an active crossover shouldn't sound any different than a passive crossover in operation, because they're doing the exact same job.
Right, just in
Yeah.
slightly different ways. Yeah, there's nothing inherently better about it, but I mean, it could sound different. Of course, it could. But
Yeah,
if you
good
swap
sound.
out some of the components in a passive crossover, it will sound different too.
So he's going to try building some DIY bookshelf speakers, and he's considering using an active crossover instead of a regular passive crossover. In particular, KX Studio
Linux.
Linux,
Linux
Linux.
software.
Oh, sorry, software running on a Raspberry Pi. He's read some literature that suggests there are some things that active crossovers can do that crossovers cannot, particularly when it comes to phase alignment. Do we have any knowledge about this, or any recommendations for going either passive or active with the crossover design? I don't really. I mean, I'm not an electrical engineer, and I'm not a speaker designer, and I've never claimed to be. So I am not really familiar with, why you would go with the different things the active crossover. I'm sure active crossovers can do things that passive crossovers cannot, especially if you're using DSP or digital signal processing. That being said, there's a reason why passive crossovers have been used for so long, and that's mostly because once you design it, once you design a good crossover for your speaker, it's not really going to change. So using an active solution is a lot more expense than you really need. You design that passive crossover, and it works for every single speaker that if they all have the same specs.
Yeah, if you're mass producing it, it totally makes sense.
But you, on the other hand, are trying to DIY your own speaker.
Yeah,
I would definitely go with an active crossover.
Oh yeah,
because you have the ability to make mistakes and then fix them without having to go back to scratch and design.
So much easier to do your trial and error when you have an active digital crossover. I am super in favor of you using the active digital crossover when it's a DIY project. So the other I don't know, quirk, it's not really a plus or a minus, some people consider it a minus, is that when you're using a digital active crossover, of course, the amplification has to come after the crossover, not before it. So you have to have the output from the digital crossover turned into analog and then send amplification, which means you need a separate amplifier for each driver or each set of drivers that's getting that signal from the output end of the crossover. So it's a slightly different design. It does mean you probably need more amplifier channels. A passive crossover, you can have one amplifier before the crossover and it sends all the power through the crossover, which then divides it up and sends it out to each driver. So that's why a lot of mass market speakers, you only have the one set of binding posts, one amplifier powering it, whereas active digital, you usually have the amplifiers are built into the speaker itself and there'll be one for each driver.
Yeah. Lastly, he asks, what are our thoughts on the claim often attributed to Floyd Toole that we should not absorb sidewall reflections? Sushmit squeaked out an extra $400 in his budget, so he's wondering if it would be more beneficial to put that money towards room treatments on his side and front walls or on his ceiling. Well, side walls are the first reflection point. So, yes, okay. We've come across this before, and it sort of kind of depends on your room. Really That's big rooms, opinion, that Floyd Toole is dealing with. He's like, you don't need to absorb those side reflections. You're like, yeah, the wall's like a bajillion feet away from the speaker. No, that first reflection point is only hitting the dude in the back of the room, and he's got 30 people it's going through before it gets to him. So no, you don't have to absorb it. But in many rooms, and honestly, if you're going to buy the absorption panels, try it.
Sure, right. Yeah.
Lean it up against the wall right there and just
That's
say,
true.
Make a difference
That's
to
true.
me. Put it in all the places that you want to put it, and then say, okay, before you put any nails in your wall or whatever you're going to use to hang it. But our experience and my experience has been that those first reflection points are very important because that first reflection gets back to you just a little bit behind the direct speaker sound and messes up can affect the imaging of your speakers. So I mean, I think that he's not wrong, but he's not talking to you. He's talking to somebody else.
Yeah, I'm more in line with Kevin Vakes' opinions on this. Kevin Vakes is the guy who runs Revel, and Revel is part of Harman as well. And so his basic stance on it, and I'm paraphrasing, so if I get it a little bit wrong, forgive me, but more or less, the smaller the room, the more he's in favor of absorbing the first reflection points, and the larger the room, the less necessary it is. And I'm very much in line with that opinion as well. And it makes sense. It's, when you've got a smaller room, those reflections are coming really quickly after the direct sound, which means your brain just sums them together. And it's like, well, that's one continuous sound. The farther, if the walls are quite far away, your brain can actually differentiate between the direct and the reflected sound. And your brain does a really good job at that. And Floyd's like, when that's the case, you don't really need those sidewall reflections gone. In fact, when they are gone, your brain thinks something is a little bit askew. Right. So both are correct in my opinion, but I think it depends on your room size.
Alongo. As his desktop, Alongo uses an AudioQuest Dragonfly DAC Plus. Is that what it is, a DAC Plus?
Or no, DAC Plus and headphone amplifier.
Okay, a DAC and a headphone amplifier to power his Audio-Technica M50X headphones. Well, excuse me, I like those. He mostly listens to Spotify. By default, his Windows sets his audio output to the Dragonfly to be 24-bit 96 kilohertz. Spotify definitely isn't streaming 24-bit 96 kilohertz audio. Ain't that the truth, Haas? So is there any negative impact by using this default setting? Would things sound better if you manually set the output to a bit rate and sampling frequency that match the streaming source? All right, I can understand where this question is coming from for sure, because as an audio purist, many times not audio purist, but many times you and I have talked about how up converting or up sampling things is a pointless endeavor and there's no point to it. In this case, it is a pointless endeavor that is doing absolutely no harm to your signal. There would be, I cannot imagine a scenario where a DAC inside of a computer would be so bad as it up samples from whatever it's getting
Well, this
from
isn't even
Spotify.
a DAC. It's not converting it to analog at all.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it's just saying that it's digitally upsampling it, I guess. So it's really not. I mean, this is just, it's literally like multiplying.
Yes.
It can't mess it up. It's a computer.
Yeah.
It's what it does.
I mean, it defaults to that because that's what the Dragonfly can accept. Yeah. So Windows is just like, all right, I'm going to send you what you can accept. Now, of course, the Dragonfly could accept 44.1 kilohertz 16-bit, which is pretty much what's being sent from Spotify. But I mean, again, you can try it. It's not going to hurt anything if you just manually switch it and give it a listen, but I wouldn't anticipate any difference whatsoever.
Right.
And certainly no harm in sending 24-bit 96 kilohertz.
I 100% agree. Yeah. So on the gaming computer that we got, and my son's is finally starting the game on it. And he's now my two boys are fighting over it because one wants to play Fortnite and one wants to play Overwatch, and I don't really care because I don't play games anymore because I don't have any time. But we have there's a headphone jack on the thing, so I was using the headphone jack with my bigger Oppos, the PM2s, and then I was like, I've got that Stealth DC1 or whatever it was from Emotiva. I'm gonna hook that up. Now there's an instance where it sounded a lot better coming through the Emotiva.
He's got way more amplifier power for the headphones coming out of that Emotiva.
I can power them with my phone. All right. But the difference in like the ability to recreate the sound correctly made a huge difference. Now, was that because it's, the Emotiva is taking that and upsampling it as well, or somebody somewhere down the line is upsampling?
Seriously, doubt it's actually anything to do with the digital to analog conversion.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just the power.
What you're saying is exactly why whenever we say that DACs don't make a huge difference, everyone is like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. I plugged in a DAC to my computer and it made a huge difference. But I'm like, it was the amplification that made a huge difference, or the lower noise that made a huge difference, because the headphone jack that's just built into the front of your computer is probably noisy and probably really underpowered.
Yes.
And those two things make way more difference than the digital to analog conversion part of the signal change. So again, misattribution is what usually happens there.
All right, Luke on Twitter. Luke is preparing for a long flight. Well, he's probably sorry, dude.
Probably too late. Yeah. I answered him on Twitter, so he got some kind of response.
He's wondering if you should invest in some noise-canceling headphones. He already has a pair of Shure in-ear monitors, so what would be the benefits of active noise-canceling headphones versus the passive isolation of in-ear monitors? All right, so using noise-canceling headphones is great for drowning out the droning of the plane.
Yeah, the engine sound. That's a constant humming drone. And even like general crowd noise of people chattering, which is
as long as it's close to white. The closer it is to white noise, the better it is at doing it. Now, what's the downside? The downside is that you usually take power to make that work, which can be an issue depending on which ones you buy. They are basically pumping sound into your ears. That is the cancellation wave. So it's sounding quieter, but there's still a lot more. There's more pressure on your ears. I find them, after a while of wearing them, my ears hurt. If that makes sense. But it's not gonna. You're gonna hear crying babies. You're gonna hear the lady talking to you next to you.
Yeah, the individual voices. Yeah,
all that stuff is still coming through. Oh, yeah. Like I thought the first time I tried active noise canceling headphones, I was gonna put them on, and my kids were gonna just be their mouths were just gonna move. I wasn't gonna be able to hear them. It's not the case. Now, to me, I find that just regular isolation from headphones is usually good enough for me. It's close enough. With the music on, it's fine. But if that droning noise really bothers you, then that would be the benefit.
Yeah, so I'm super in favor of passive isolation. The Shure in-ear monitors that I'm a big fan of. They have multiple different ear tips. Make sure
Right.
you're using the ones that
Foam.
fit you properly and give you a really good seal. And remember that your left ear might have a different size opening than your right ear. You don't have to use the same size for both ears. It's fine to use different sizes if your ears happen to take that. Yeah, the foam ones, the Comply fit ones, sort of a orangey or yellowy tip on them with the foamy thing, those seal really, really well. They work very much like just regular earplugs, and I'm super in favor of those because you don't have the extra pressure. You're not worrying about a battery running out, and if you put it just even quiet music on, the world is gone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So he'd like to be untethered from his phone, so he's wondering about Bluetooth options. He'd be okay with a wire running between the two earphones as long as there's no more wire running from the earphones to his phone. He has Shure in-ear monitors, and Shure offers a Bluetooth cable that can replace the standard cable, but at $80 seems kind of pricey. Is there a better value option? I'm sure there are lots of Bluetooth headphones out there that either do or do not have headphone active noise cancellation. There's a whole bunch of that are like clones of each other, the J something or others. I can't remember what they're called. But honestly, for $80, you're probably going to spend most of $80 on another set of headphones that do all the things you want them to do in Bluetooth. You can spend a lot more if you aren't careful. So $80 might just be the way I would probably go. If you know you like the headphones, you know they fit you, and you know you like their sound, to me that's probably your best option. But I'm sure Rob's got a suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to keep the ones that you have, but just replace their cable, then yeah, you might pony up the money, get that Shure cable that turns them into that. There's a couple of alternatives though. One, you could just get entirely new in-ear monitors, RBHs, EPSBs. Are good sounding little Bluetooth ones. They have the little cord that goes between your left ear and right ear, but that's the only cord. Nothing actually going from them to your phone.
They have a foam tip too, right? So that
foam
would
tips
be,
on those.
That would be quite isolating.
And they are $70 right now on sale. They're not normally that cheap.
$10.
But $70. So yeah, but who knows? Maybe that's one way to do it. The other thing you could do is Avantry does have a good little what do they call it? The Clipper Pro. And it's a little Bluetooth adapter. So you would take the regular headphone cable that you're already using, but you'd plug it into the little Clipper Pro instead of directly into your phone. And then the Clipper Pro is connected via Bluetooth to your phone. So you still have the regular cable. It's still dangling down from your head, but you can be untethered from your phone, which is the thing that he said he wanted to be. So I'm not sure.
Seems kind of complicated, I guess.
Well, I mean, you're just plugging it into an alternate thing, right?
Right. I mean, if you're going to plug it into that, you might as well plug it into your phone. I don't know.
Kind of, yeah. Although, I don't know, maybe your phone's going to be in your backpack, and this lets you undo that. So you can find those for certainly $35, usually about $30 you can find those for. So that's an alternative way to change one thing to another.
So we noticed that the Focal Little Bird has a stated minus 3 dB frequency response down to 89 hertz. So it seemed like you'd want a crossover frequency higher than regular 80 hertz, correct? Probably.
Yep, probably.
But it depends on your room and your placement and everything else. So yes, would that mean the subwoofer playing higher than 80 hertz would start to sound directional? And what's the nature of the relationship between sound directionality and frequency, and how does that impact the subwoofer to speaker crossover? All right, so there's a couple things. There's a couple things part of these questions. Okay, first of all, it's not like there's a brick wall at 80 hertz. Right. You know exactly where it's coming from. At 79, you're like, it's everywhere. No, that's not how it works. All right, it is a continuum. Okay, it's a continuum. So at 80 hertz, you're more likely to notice where the directionality is. The higher frequency you go, the more you're able to locate that. Now, let's talk about a couple of things that can impact this. How close are you to the subwoofer? How close is the subwoofer to the directionality of where the sound was supposed to be coming from anyways? Meaning, if you're worried about these surrounds, or maybe these are surround backs, and the subwoofer's at the back of the room, well, then directionality is less of an issue. But on top of that, two subwoofers reduces directionality considerably because they're both playing the same thing from two different directions, which means your brain goes, it's everywhere. So we can fix directionality and by the way, 10 hertz, it's gonna probably cross over at 90 or maybe
90 or
100
100, yeah.
and that's not going to be enough. So you'll be like, it's there now.
Right.
If you were sitting directly next to the subwoofer, it's being crossed over much higher, like at 120 hertz, like you would with those little tiny sats that we used to use, little cubes everywhere. And it's the subwoofer right next to you. You're like, it's playing. I can tell. Yeah, of course you can tell. You're sitting right next to the stupid thing. But guy, I guarantee you, put another one in the room and put them, a little bit further away from you, you're going to have a much harder time, even at as high as 120 hertz.
Yeah, on the sort of human front of it, mostly we determine directionality of sound by the interaural difference, meaning the differences that are happening to your left ear versus your right ear. And those can be timing differences, those can be volume differences, or they can be the result of reflections, including the reflections off of your own head and your shoulders, as well as the reflections around you. And when your left ear gets a different signal than your right ear, we use that to locate where the sound came from. So just in terms of wavelength, what we can detect as an interaural difference purely on wavelength, we have to be about a quarter of the wavelength, and the average human head is wide enough that somewhere between 300 and 400 hertz is where we can 100% tell where that sound came from based on just our left ear getting a different signal in time versus the right ear from that one wavelength. The time it took to travel from the distance between the two ears is enough that we can use that to locate the sound. Now, when you go down to 1/8 of the wavelength, so down at 150 to 200 hertz, we have a heck of a time telling where that came from. It's very, very difficult for us. There are a few little things in reflections off of our shoulders and stuff that we can kind of use, get a sense of it's maybe that way versus that way, very vague. But we have a heck of a time telling. And then another octave below that, so 75 to 100 hertz, we essentially can't tell at all. So that 80 hertz was chosen because we essentially can't tell at all at that point. And you're talking about...
It's basically guaranteed. Like everybody who says, I can totally tell at 80 hertz is a liar. Or they're kidding themselves. So.
But the other part of it is there are still harmonics being played.
Yeah.
And the harmonics in a subwoofer crossover, so we talked about crossovers previously, but in a subwoofer crossover, an octave above wherever you set the crossover, it's 24 decibels quieter, assuming you're using a fourth order crossover. So 24 decibels per octave. So up at 150, 200 hertz, you're about 24 decibels quieter. And then another octave above that, you're about 48 decibels quieter. That's not silence. And you might still be able to pick that up, but the point is usually your speakers are playing much more loud, much more, higher volume than your subwoofers at those frequencies. So you locate your speakers playing those sounds, not your subwoofer. So the higher you set the crossover, the more chance you'll hear some of those harmonics coming from your subwoofer as well. But interaural differences down at 75 to 100 hertz, we really can't tell. These speakers can be crossed at 100 hertz. It's really no problem.
So he says his Den receiver auto set some of his speakers to large, but when he went to manually change them to small, like we always recommend, he noticed that he still had the option to assign a crossover frequency even to the speakers that were set as large. Why is that? How would that work? Really?
You do in the modern Denon and Marantzes, they let you do this.
I guess I had never noticed that because I always immediately set them to small, but the reality is large speakers don't play down to 20 hertz. So offering a crossover is a good idea, regardless whether or not they're large or small.
It's not really what it's doing, though. It's still sending the full range signal to any speakers that are set to large. So in a Denon and Marantz, any speakers that you have set to large are getting the full range signal. They're attempting to play all the way down to 20 hertz or even lower. They give you the crossover because under the subwoofer output setting, there are the two options, LFE or LFE plus mains.
Right.
And if you set the subwoofer output to just LFE, it'll actually tell you in text, now the subwoofer output will be the LFE channel, that makes sense, and the bass coming from any speakers that have been set to small. But that's it. So speakers that are set to small, it's getting their bass, and the dedicated LFE channel, of course, it's getting that bass. But if you set the subwoofer output to the LFE plus mains setting, then it will take the bass from any speaker that has a crossover applied to it, including speakers that have been set to large. So the speaker is attempting to play all the way to down to 20 hertz, and it is duplicating that bass out of the subwoofer output below whatever crossover frequency you set. So it's attempting to duplicate the bass out of two places.
Well, again, it's clear as mud, these receiver settings.
I know, right?
It's just like, hey, that's actually a pretty good idea. Oh, that's not what we did. What? Wait, what? No. Why would we do that? Well, because you're actually protecting the speaker if you do a crossover, even if it's a large speaker. Oh, no.
Now, the thing is, if you had, like, crazy speakers that actually really can play down to 20 hertz.
Sure.
And you have your front left and your front right. You've set those to large. And then you put two subwoofers at the back of the room, mirroring their placement in a rectangular room. You could actually use that, and you, in effect, have 4 subwoofers now. It's not out of the question to do that.
Well, I mean, it's out of the question for Lee to do it because his won't actually reach down to 20. And he doesn't have any subwoofers at all.
I said, if you have the crazy speakers that really can. Yeah. You know, like Gene at Audioholics, this is what he does. He sets his speakers to large, and they genuinely are. Those really can. But then he also
are physically large. They're like 300 pounds a piece.
And then he has 5 subwoofers in addition to those. So, you know, lots of subs.
Got a couple of subs.
Yeah.
He's got subs to spare. I wonder if he put all his subs up in his bathroom on the counter when he left to go during the hurricane. I did because I care about my subs. All right, Infinite Gary. Gary has the 2-disc DVD release of Pearl Harbor. Why? Why do you have that movie? It's so bad. It's a THX certified DVD. His Lexicon Pre-Pro is a THX certified, and sure enough, its manual recommends using THX listening modes with re-EQ to simulate the high frequency roll-off that occurs in movie theaters, since the film mix might be too bright in home theaters.
It says that right in quotes. It's right there in the manual.
He never used the THX listening mode before, but he also never thought it sounded too bright. We brought all of this THX re-EQ stuff up that last week.
Well, not last week, week before that.
Well, whatever. He has been doing it wrong all this time. Okay, first of all, you answered your own question by saying it never sounded too bright to you.
That's right.
So the answer to the question is you were doing it right. If you were, and honestly, dude, just ignore all this THX stuff. Just ignore it. Just ignore it. I've never ever watched a THX movie and thought, you know what's really wrong with this is that it's really too bright. I've always thought, I'm so glad they put this much bass in here. That's what I've
noticed the opposite, which is using the THX listening mode without having manually turn re-EQ off and going, there's some detail missing in this thing, and then you turn the re-EQ off and your treble comes back. So I've noticed the opposite of this. There's no right or wrong, Gary. I mean, you're not mandated to use the THX listening mode. I suppose if you, I don't know, is it worth giving a try? And
he's already tried it.
Of course you can. And you can manually toggle re-EQ on and off, so pick whichever one you prefer, because there's no right or wrong answer.
He asked, how bad is it really to have a digital coax audio cable running next to a power cord? Excuse me.
That is 3 weeks.
I am telling you, I have no idea what's going on. I it's this weird sneezing thing I have going on during this podcast. Okay, that's not true. I did sneeze today. I sneezed like 30 times in a row. I sneezed my head off. But then I have not sneezed since the last time I was on this podcast, I swear. All right. How bad is it really to have a digital coax audio cable running next to a power cord? All right. Do you have like the world's cheapest, crappiest cables, Gary?
Right.
No? Then you're fine.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Like anytime we've ever had to deal with this problem, and I'll be honest with you, this is a problem that I have never seen manifest in real life. My cable management is atrocious. I just throw that crap back there, right? And if I have extra cable, it just gets wound on top of itself, and the power cables are all higgly back there. I don't pay attention to none of that. And I've never, ever experienced a problem. And I have, and I'm not going to lie, I have taken like the 3 cables you get when you bought like a CD player a million years ago, or our VHS player. I've taken the yellow one off,
right?
Because it has more shielding, and I've used those. Still never noticed a problem.
Yep.
So this is sort of it's not an old wives' tale. That's not what it is. What it is it's like the thing that your mom always says that you should do, like don't go swimming because you might get cramps. It's like, yeah, you might if you go swimming after eating. Don't wait 30 minutes. But the reality is no one has ever gotten cramps that way that anybody knows. You've never met a person who dove in the water after taking a bite of a hamburger, immediately seized up and had to be dragged out of the water and saved by a lifeguard. It's never happened in your lifetime. It's not gonna happen in your lifetime. And this is just a non-issue.
Right. Yeah, that's what the shield on a coaxial cable is for. And on a digital signal cable, it's even less of a concern because digital is only concerned with is the signal high or low. It's a
Right.
square wave going through there, so it's even less of a concern. But nonetheless, I mean, he found out that he can wind it up through the base of his speaker stand anyway, so wound up separating it anyway. And Gary actually did send a picture of the left side of his room, so he's got a closet door. That's why he couldn't put an acoustic panel on the left side. So that mystery is solved. But yeah, by and large, as long as you're using a coaxial cable that is properly constructed and has a shield, it's a close to a non-issue.
All right. Gary noticed that on his Marantz SACD player, if he plays an SACD, the front panel display of the player shows the track tile along with the track number and time. But with regular CDs, it only shows the track number and the time, and not the track title. Why is that the case? If he plays a CD on his Oppo 203, its front panel only shows the time. But if he turns on the TV display has all sorts of information: artist, album name, track title, even the cover art. So if all this info is present, why can't the front panel display just show the name of the track? Why can't the front panel display show the name of the track that's playing? Because someone didn't think you'd want it there. And that's why they did it.
Yeah, that's a programming thing. I'm not sure on CDs. I mean, CD to CD, I'm sure the metadata can be different because these type of things, track title, that is metadata.
Yeah, that's
and
all that
on
is. Yeah.
regular Redbook CDs, I'm not sure if they include that all the time in every release. Some might,
I think, it would very much depend on the publisher and maybe which pressing you got.
Now the Oppo. For things
Kids
like
box 17, they may include a lot of information or none at all. Who knows?
For the Oppo, for things like cover art, I think it's actually connecting to a service and downloading that, because I don't think that's not usually on the CD. The cover art,
it's not.
So I'm sure it's connecting to what is it, like Grace Note or something like that.
Yeah.
It's probably what that Oppo is doing for the on-screen display. But yeah, as far as why the Marantz does that for SACDs and not CDs, SACDs definitely have all that metadata. The CDs, some of them probably do, but some of them don't. So they're probably like, lowest common denominator. The ones that don't, doesn't do it, and the ones that do, we don't do it for that either.
Yeah. That way, we'll get people calling us saying, "How come this?
How come this one did and this one didn't?"
Yeah. Sometimes you're just like, okay, what's gonna how many people can we fire from the customer service department if we don't have our product do this thing? So he says when using his Roku Ultra to stream from Amazon, he's getting a lip sync problem. Welcome to my world, dude. Amazon and lip sync and me do not get along. I had to stop watching Mr. Robot because the lip sync just so bad. It was
really
that's
too bad. Such a good show.
Yeah. He has the Roku Ultra plugged into his Anthem processor, which then feeds his projector. Projector does not any help in this situation, and the audio is ahead of the video. He tried using Anthem's lip sync setting to delay the audio, but it only goes to 170 milliseconds or whatever MS is, which apparently isn't enough. Any chance that using the Roku Ultra's optical audio output and plugging the HDMI directly into projector for video would improve things? Any chance of a different streaming device for Amazon Prime Video would deliver better results or offer sync adjustments of its own? Like I tell you, dude, I fixed it and it was a way more than 170 for me and Amazon. I fixed it, and then I had to unfix it so that everything else wasn't screwed up. Everything was messed up. So I feel you.
Yeah,
I feel you. I don't have a good solution for you. I would try if you can to plug the video directly into the projector to see if that makes a difference.
Usually what the Anthem is doing is inside of the Anthem, it's synchronizing it so that sending it out to the projector or sending it out to the display. It doesn't know what it's connected to. Sending it out to the display and playing the audio itself, those are in sync. But then your projector is probably adding some extra delay from whatever processing it has to do.
Right.
So there's a chance that if you just plug the video separate from the audio, then the Anthem at least isn't going to be delaying the video at all, right? And then maybe it'll have enough range. I've seen a lot of modern receivers that give you at least 250 milliseconds. But God, is there a better solution? I mean, is there a different? I guess you could try a Fire TV. I mean, that's Amazon's own device. If anything's going to do Amazon streaming well, it'll be a Fire TV.
You would hope, or a Fire Stick at the very least. I mean, that would be cheaper.
There's not much else that can be done
There's
here.
really not much else.
Yeah.
I mean, there's professional video processing, I guess standalone units that maybe could do this, but
Oh, I suppose. Yeah. I
but
guess
even
so,
then, it would fix it for Amazon. But the minute you switch to a different app,
yeah.
you'd be screwed again.
Yeah.
So there's no real lip sync is like to me like my worst nightmare.
Yep.
I know that sounds very petty and stupid. I've got 3 kids that could get run over by a car, and Rob apparently could burn alive. But lip sync, that's the real problem. All right, Earl. Earl has some speaker wire that is meant for bio-wiring. It has a single pair of red and black connectors on one end, but 2 pairs of black and red connectors on the other ends. All the ends are pre-terminated with banana plugs. He's changing speakers, and his new speakers only have 1 pair of binding posts. So what's the best way to connect things? Buy new speaker wire. It's cheap.
He doesn't want to because the ones that he has were expensive. He's like, I've got these expensive speaker wires. I want to use them.
This is, I understand what you're saying, dude, but
Yes.
for real, change your speaker wire, because I mean it's either the real solution in my mind is to strip the 2 ends and put them together and then put them into 1 pair of binding posts.
Sure.
All right, but
now those fancy pre-terminations that you bought. Yeah,
you could sell these things online and then buy cheap speaker wire, which is what all you really need, and then pocket the difference.
Yeah.
Because somebody is going to want these.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm in favor of that. I mean, what will function is you could just make sure that 1 black and red pair of the side that has 2 pairs is not in contact with anything, and definitely not in contact with each other. Maybe you wrap them with some electrical tape to make sure.
Geez.
And then you just plug one in, because it'll function. You just plug 1 pair of the body, but it'll work. It'll function. And you just want to make sure you get no short circuit.
You short it, and you got a chance of blowing an amplifier channel. I mean, these days they're pretty protected, but still, I mean, why go through all so that you could use this fancy speaker wire that you're like, no, sell it.
But if you're bound and determined to use it and you just want it to function, then yeah, you make sure that the second pair is not ever going to come in contact with anything. You just plug one of them in. It'll work. It'll work just fine.
I want to chance it, man, but that's just me. Josh was reading through one of the featured home theater articles on SVS's website. A fellow named Jeff was detailing a setup in which he's using a new Denon X8500H receiver and a whole bunch of SVS speakers, 17 to be precise. That does include the subwoofer, so don't go crazy.
No, it doesn't.
So yeah, it does.
No, 17 plus dual subwoofers, so 19 sound-producing things.
15 plus dual subwoofers.
Nope, it's 17 plus dual. So he said there's 19 including the subwoofers, so 17 speakers.
All right, whatever. Setup includes 7 floor-level channels, the traditional left, center, right, side surrounds, and surround backs. What caught Josh's attention is that Jeff is using 10 SVS prime elevation speakers, so Josh wants to know how. Is there a way to use 10 overhead speakers for Atmos? The 8500H only includes 4 pair of height binding posts. How would Jeff be connecting 10 overhead speakers? The dude isn't. Read the article more carefully. He says that he's got them all up there in hopes that someday he will be able to use them all. Right. And right now he can switch between the ones and try out different configurations to see what he likes.
Yep.
So he is not using them all. He is using the 4 overheads or 6 or whatever the 8500 can do. And that's it.
Yeah, so six can be active. So he's got front heights, top middles, and rear heights. So for Atmos, that's what he'd be using. When he's listening to DTS-X, he can actually only have 4 of the overhead speakers active, so he's probably using the front heights and rear heights. That's what DTS would recommend. But he has also installed the center height and top surround, aka voice of God. So those are for Oro 3D. Now, you can have those physically connected to the X8500H, because the X8500H has 8 height outputs, but only 6 of them can be active at any given time. So you can physically connect those, and then it will switch. So a quote-unquote normal person, this is still very rare, but a quote-unquote normal person would have front heights, rear heights, top middles, and then the the center height and the top surround all physically connected, and then the X8500H will automatically switch between using the top middles when it's Atmos, and then the voice of God and the center height when it's Oro 3D. And both systems will use the front heights and the rear heights. But Jeff has also installed surround height speakers, which are only used by Oro 3D. So there's really no way that he could have those physically connected at the same time. He would have to disconnect his top middles and then connect his surround heights, and then Oro could be set up to use front heights, surround heights, voice of God, and center height. But he would then have to use the Odyssey Editor app to load different configurations, because that is changing the configuration. You can't just say, now I'm using surround heights instead of top middles and leave everything else the same. No, you have to wholesale swap the entire thing. So right now, he isn't actually doing that. He's installed them all ahead of time, hoping that, maybe, who knows, maybe he wins the lottery and he buys a Trinov Altitude 32, and then he really could use all of these speakers.
Nick says that most of his viewing now comes from streaming services, Netflix, Amazon, HBO, PBS, and some others. PBS has a streaming service?
Oh, yeah.
Does it cost money?
I don't know. I doubt it. Who knows?
I will have to download that app.
Yeah.
He's got a Roku 3 and a non-4K Apple TV. It doesn't matter which streaming service or which device he uses. He sees banding in dark images. He still rents the odd Blu-ray disc now and then. How does he get that into his Roku? And those do not show banding in dark images. So he doesn't think the problem is inherent to his TV. So what's the fix here? Would a newer device like a Apple TV 4K deliver less banding? Will it get better when he eventually upgrades his TV to OLED sometime in the next year? There's a couple things that could be going on here. The input that you're using for the streaming service is certainly different than the input you're using for the Blu-ray service, because you cannot, you're not using that. So there could be, and I'm not saying there could be an issue with settings as far as brightness is going. And you could have something going on there with the calibration on that one setting. More likely, this is a bandwidth issue in my mind. You are getting lower throughput from your streaming services, so there is banding and blooming and micro blocking and other things that can be coming up, because there's just compression that has to happen as it comes through the inner tubes into your house. So what is your speed and that sort of thing?
I suppose, I mean, when I was watching Amazon Prime streaming through the built-in app on my LG OLED, I was definitely seeing banding. No question. To me, the banding was more noticeable on Amazon Prime than it was on Netflix, and they do use slightly different compression and whatnot. But I'm pretty sure this is just a data compression thing. I mean, like you said, when you watch the Blu-ray, you're not seeing it, so it doesn't seem to be inherent to the television itself.
That's the big giveaway right there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this. I mean, now he's saying it's kind of the same no matter which streaming service he's using. So, like I say, I noticed a difference between Netflix and Amazon, but on Netflix, I did still see banding sometimes. It wasn't free from it all the time. So, it's kind of inherent to the source. It's one of the reasons why disc fans are still fans of discs, because you don't get these
announced that they're going to start. You can now stream the Infinity War movie, I think. Yeah, I think it started this week.
Yeah, on iTunes.
I can't wait till it comes out on disc so I can buy it.
Yeah, it's a couple of weeks away from disc, I think. But so will it get better if he gets an OLED, or will it get better if he gets an Apple TV 4K? No.
Talk to your ISP, see if you can get some more throughput. But even
then, I mean, I've got really fast internet and everything, and Amazon Prime was still banding all over the place. That's just the signal they're sending.
The compression, there's going to be the compression. So there is compression that's going to happen. It's not like you can get like lossless video and audio from Netflix. They don't offer it. So I'm with you, right? Like, I've noticed that there's a lot of video issues with Netflix and the other services that I don't notice with my discs. And the convenience of the streaming is just too much. So Sony has been lauded for their video processing that reduces banding. He isn't going to replace his TV right away just for this banding issue, but when the time arrives, would this be enough of a reason to consider a Sony? Nope.
Maybe with the X1 Ultimate, if you want to spend $7,000.
I mean, the Netflix, then your Netflix looks okay, but everything else looks like garbage. I mean, I don't know. I would be surprised if this issue was alleviated completely by buying a new TV.
Oh, it won't be eliminated completely, but the Sonys do a good job. They have a sort of anti-posterization and anti-banding processing that is part of it. It has been lauded. LG though has in their current models, so like the C8 and the E8 and those, the ones that end in an 8, they have also introduced an anti-banding thing. They've hidden it because they're LG and they like to hide things in their menus. They've hidden it under their MPEG noise reduction. If you set that to low, it will activate the anti-banding. I don't know why they had to hide it in an existing setting, but there it is under the MPEG noise reduction. You set that to low, and it does. Most people have said not quite as good as Sony, but very, very close. So it still won't eliminate it entirely. On Amazon, you'll still have some banding because it's coming from the source. But you're not beholden to Sony. LG can do it too. Hey, if you really like a Sony makes nice OLEDs, so I got no problem with that.
About that, I guess I don't want to set this guy up to say, hey, I'm going to go and get this new TV and then everything's going to be perfect. Right. I kind of feel like that's what happened to Lee. Lee was like, I've got this new TV. It's the newest technology, blah, blah, blah. It's got a small flaw.
We were even saying it was even more frustrating because it was so close to being perfect, but it wasn't perfect. And that was even more frustrating than if it had been farther away.
He says, we mentioned when we were talking about LCD and OLED production facilities, the generation panel sizes that LG's displays new Gen 10.5 OLED plant might allow them to make an 88-inch OLED TV. If you follow that, you're better than me. I read the dang thing. Basically, he said that there's a new 88-inch TVs coming out. Nick recalls that LG did have an 8K resolution 88-inch OLED on display at CES this year, but it's strictly a prototype. Do we think they might have plans to actually mass produce it, though? And if so, what sort of price point do we think it could have? 10 grand, 15 grand? Or it'll be so high that it's into the if you have to ask territory. Dude, they are 100% going to bring out 8K displays.
Yep.
There's no chance. And guess what? After that, there's going to be 16K displays. They got to do something. Yeah. Until they come up with holographic technology or something like that, they got to do something to sell more TVs. They can't say, 4K, that's it, man.
Yeah. No, 2020 was the year. 2020, it's the Olympics that are being held in Japan. Yeah. They've been going on about their super high vision 8K resolution thing for, a decade now. And that was the target. In fact, Rec 2020, most of the SMPTE numbers are arbitrary or just go in sequential order, but they chose 2020. That one was given to it specifically because they were aiming for the year 2020. Right. So they will absolutely release an 8K 88-inch OLED in 2020. I have almost no doubt about that at all. I really think it's coming. I think it'll be about at least $20,000, probably $25,000.
Yeah, I was going to say something higher than that, but yeah,
because that's when the 77-inch came out. Originally, it was in the $20,000 to $25,000 range, and I think that's what it might be even more. We are talking about going to a whole new resolution class, but LG is always aggressive on pricing, and I think they really want to actually sell some of these. And I think $25,000. That's my guess. I'm throwing that out there for I don't know, steak dinner bet.
Yeah, I think it'll be closer to 50 grand. But okay,
it could be. You never know.
Would the existence of an 88-inch OLED make a strong case for foregoing a projection setup? If you sit just a bit closer, you can still have the same field of view, and it will unquestionably be brighter and have higher contrast, even with a bit of ambient light present. So, would we ever recommend going with a projector if there's 88-inch OLEDs out there? Okay, first of all, yeah, you're absolutely right. 88-inch TV that was affordable.
Yeah,
would absolutely. Hey, I think 75-inch TVs, and in a lot of cases, 65-inch TVs. People sit pretty close, sometimes pretty close to their TVs. But
65 is not close to a projector setup. But
yeah, I know 88 inches is 100% into the.
If you were thinking about a 92-inch screen going down,
I have
4
a 92-inch
inches...
screen. I would definitely take an 88-inch OLED right now. Pass it over.
Yeah,
for 100%, but. It's going to be some time before we see that size TV at a price that rivals what you can do with a projector.
But like 85-inch LCDs exist today at prices that are, they're expensive, but they're not completely out of the realm of possibility for a lot of people. So 88-inch OLED is going to be a while before that's affordable, but an 85-inch TV, For certainly, I mean, if you were going, I'm getting a 92-inch projector, but I want to have ambient light, I'd be like, get an 85-inch TV because that's certainly close enough. But if you were going for a 135-inch or 150-inch, you're still nowhere close. And if you were like, the only way I'm going to do this if it's an OLED, then the price difference is going to be so big for so long that projector still makes sense. We'll be recommending projectors for years to come yet.
Right. Another alternative to projectors might be Samsung's micro LED, the wall display, which we talked about at the top of the podcast. But can we remind him? He seems to recall tech reporters mentioning some drawbacks that there's a bit of a barrier for deploying these in homes. Something about pixel density, perhaps. Can we clarify that for him? I actually was thinking the same thing, but in my mind, I thought we said that these things are so. I mean, they're small and they're close together. But they ain't that close together.
No, I mean, it was 4K resolution at 146 inches.
Right.
So to shrink the 4K resolution down to, let's even say 88 inches, right? You're talking about the pixel density having to become almost twice as dense. If you want it smaller than that, like if you want, like the people who keep talking about micro LED being a competitor to OLED, I'm like, no, they're completely different class things.
Yeah, you're going to be so far back from these things for there not to be visible edges between the
plus the modular display. They're made up of individual, almost like tablets essentially stitched together, and people were like, if you get like within about 8 feet of that, you can see the seams. Right. Now 8 feet, a lot of people are sitting 8 to 10 feet away, and you don't want to see the seams in your display. So this is meant for a theater, a home theater,
right, an actual 30-foot.
where you're sitting 15, 16, 17 feet away from the thing. And then it makes sense. Then it's great. And if you can afford it, by all means, it's certainly going to be brighter than any projector. You can have ambient light on with the thing. But I don't see micro LED as being a competitor to OLED at all.
Not yet.
Very expensive. The other one where he might have had some confusion is they were talking about micro LED and Samsung's cinema display, the 34-foot wide one at the same time. And the cinema display, they're like, those are real, like actual LEDs, not micro LEDs. And those you have to be at least one picture height away before you just don't see dots. You don't see LEDs.
This doesn't look like pointillism.
So on that one, you got to be 17 feet away from the 34-foot wide screen just to not see dots. And in fact, if you want a normal field of view, you got to be like 30 feet away. So that might have been where some of the confusion came from. But still, on the micro LEDs, there is the pixel density thing as well. You can't be
this
super
is
close.
Something that's going to be great on like cruise ships. You know what I mean? You put it above the pool.
Or on the dance floor, right?
Yeah. All right, Mike. Mike says thanks for all the advice about his soundproof basement theater build from last week. He says he'll probably go with pretty much everything we said. Yay. And just to clarify, his equipment rack will be that's that guy. Will be outside of his theater. It will be in his utility room, and the only things in this theater will be sources that use physical media. So that's why he wanted the 50-foot HDMI runs. And before Tom says you just put the players outside the room too, the main one he cares about the Xbox One, and more than just the discs, it's the controller that concerns him. He doesn't want any issues with its wireless range or sending its signals through double stud walls and all that.
Yep,
dude, there's got to be a repeater for that. Is it though? Those Bluetooth, they're not, right? They're RF.
I don't know. I think they're Bluetooth.
Controllers, I'm pretty sure. No, well, no, I'm 100% sure it's RF because Bluetooth is
well, there's the Bluetooth low latency thing that they use. So,
but there's Bluetooth for the PS3, and it's always been a sort of contention, with your Harmony remotes. If you haven't used it in a while, you have to like reconnect.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
a pain, and that's not the case with the Xbox One. So I'm pretty sure it's RF.
Okay.
That being said, there's got to be repeaters for those things, but fine, whatever. You want your 50-foot runs, get your 50-foot runs. I don't care. He's got some questions, though. Apparently, we didn't answer enough. If he were to go for in-wall surrounds instead of wall-mounting bookshelf speakers, what would we recommend? In-wall versus wall mounting. Well, I don't remember what speakers we recommended last time.
Well, he already had his ELACs, and we're like, just mount those and use the side. We said use the side clamping mounts because he wants SVS speakers in the future, and we're like, you can just swap them out. You get bookshelf SVSs, you can swap them out if you have the side clamping mounts. But he's like, maybe I want something a little lower profile, maybe even in wall. What would we recommend?
In wall, I mean, if just to be safe, I'd probably go with something like RBHs.
Sure.
And I mean, I don't know if the price wise this really makes sense, but RBHs are just a very neutral speaker that will play nice with just about anything. So that would be like my go-to suggestion here. Now, once we talk about price and stuff like that and size and form factor, then that maybe they get dismissed because
Yeah.
on those grounds. But just as a general all around, hey, I want to buy this speaker and I'm going to buy different speakers in the future, but I don't know which ones I'm going to buy. I'm going to say go with RBH because at the very least, I'm pretty sure that unless the speakers you buy to go with them are seriously unique in their sound, they'll play fine with RBHs.
I can agree with that, but in his case, since he's so concerned about soundproofing, I'm like, just don't put big holes in your walls. Just don't.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
I mean, you can, the soundproofing company, they have the whole soundproof backer box that you can build and all that up. I'm like, it's still a big hole in your wall. I wouldn't even risk it because there are good on-wall speakers, and that's what I would recommend. Ones I really like are Focal's Superbirds. And right now, right this moment as I'm saying it, who knows how long this will go on, but Accessories for Less is having a buy one, get one free sale on those. So $300 will get you a pair of Focal Superbirds, and they are nice and flat, and they can play shockingly loud given their size. So even if you want full reference volume, really good on-wall choice. RBH also has a really nice on-wall. They're Ultra 1, their Ultra series.
Have an on-wall as well. I just saw that today. Flat ones. They look kind of cool.
They are cool, and they're very, very flat. So, a couple of I would go on wall all the way in this setup.
All right, there you go. What do we think of using the Focal Superbirds as on what we like it, but then still using the ELAC debut bookshelf speakers that he already owns as his surround backs? Would they be close enough matched not to sound distracting? Yeah, they'll be fine. Going on.
Overall, I'd say.
Rob's like, wait, that's it?
No, I mean, overall, I'd say, the surround backs are so unimportant as far as our ability to hear timbre mismatches that, I'm inclined to say that's fine.
Yeah. Bob back in the Philippines. Bob would just like some clarification regarding the names of some of the picture settings for his LG OLED TV. Well, it's going to be under Action. The Action.
No, that's Sony, man. That's Sony. Sorry.
Yeah. What's the difference between OLED light and brightness? And does changing the one of them affect the other? That is, if you make a change to one of them, do you need to make sure that you check the other one again and sort of go back and forth until you get things just right? Now, I do not know the answer to this question, so I am going to guess, and then you're going to tell me whether or not I'm right.
All right.
OLED light is the overall that light output from the back. Sort of the overall light, like because LCDs have the backlight, right?
Yeah.
But OLEDs don't. But I'm guessing that the OLED light is that.
Yeah, it's very much akin to the backlight setting of an LCD. Yeah.
The brightness is the brightness setting like a normal TV would have.
Yeah, brightness really should be called black level. I wish they would just rename it. I don't know why they're still going with the brightness and contrast, which we're going to be talking about contrast next. But the brightness setting is your black level setting. And you can actually use a test pattern to make sure that you are not crushing any detail in your blacks and that you also haven't raised that brightness setting so high that you're seeing what is supposed to be below black information. Because there is such a thing in the signal as below black, and you're not supposed to see it. It's below black. So the way to do this is your OLED light setting should be used to set your maximum nit level, your maximum peak level. That's what you use the OLED light setting for. The overall, how bright does the image look in an overall sense? Set that where you like it. I highly recommend you go into the expert settings of any picture mode, go to the white balance setting, and there is an inner test pattern. If you set it to the 20-point scale, you can scale through from 5 IRE up to 100 IRE in 5 IRE steps. You set it to 100 IRE, you set your OLED light based on that until that looks how bright you want full white to look. And then you go back and set your contrast and brightness settings, your black level. And we'll be talking about contrast next, your white level.
Okay. So what about the settings, contrast and dynamic contrast? What's the difference between those two? All right. Again, I'm going to guess. Contrast is normal contrast, but is dynamic contrast the HDR contrast?
No, not quite. So contrast it should be called white level. In a signal, there is information that is above white. You're not supposed to see it. It's above white. But you also want the contrast setting set high enough so that you aren't losing any detail in the whites. You aren't clipping the detail. And again, there are test patterns. You can use that THX Tune-Up app if you want to do that. Does a fantastic job for that. Or you can pop in any old THX DVD or any Blu-ray that had the setup patterns.
Yeah, but if you put the THX DVD in, make sure you put on REQ.
It has nothing to do with audio. But yeah, that's your so brightness is your black level, contrast is your white level. Dynamic contrast is almost a can of worms, but it is dynamically changing the gamma of your display.
Oh, don't do that.
So gamma is the rate of change from black to white. So there are industry-wide standards. If you have light, your gamma is supposed to be 2.2. If you're in a dark room, it's supposed to be 2.4. They've actually completely ratified a thing for standard dynamic range now called BT 1886, which gives exact values. This is exactly how much light should come out of your display based on the signal. But that's all gamma. It's the rate that from at like how quickly does your TV get brighter based on the signal. Well, dynamic contrast dynamically adjusts the gamma based on the content on screen. So it's when a very dark image, they might, lower the numerical value of the gamma a bit to bring out more detail in the shadows. And in a very bright scene, they might raise the numerical value of the gamma to make sure that nothing looks like overblown or washed out or anything like that. So dynamic contrast overall you don't want to use. The caveat though that Tom alluded to, if you have a 2017 OLED and only the 2017 models, the ones that ended in a 7, if you're watching HDR10 and only HDR10, you will want to set dynamic contrast to low because that's where LG hid their ability to remaster HDR10 content so that it looks correct into the dynamic contrast setting. For everything else, you want it turned off. And if you don't have a 2017 LG OLED, you want it turned off.
There you go. Travis uses his PC as his music audio source. It's plugged into a monster cable surge protector that claims to filter the power, and the surge protector is plugged into a GFCI outlet.
Ground fault circuit interrupter.
Yeah, whatever. He uses a PC sound card. I like to call it the thing my wife's hairdryer trips, and then nothing works in the bathroom for a while until I go press the button.
It's the don't get it wet, or the idea is if you get it wet, it will save your life.
That's right. They have they have them in weird places in this house. It's very disturbing.
Should be in your bathroom, should be in your garage, anywhere that you actually might get the outlet.
Not in the garage, definitely in the bathroom. There's a couple in the kitchen.
In the kitchen,
sure why. Yeah, not sure why.
They're not. You might be splashing that water around, man.
Not near the sink.
You might be. You might be throwing it behind your refrigerator. My house, your refrigerator might, flood and vent or whatever.
There's one outside.
Oh yeah, outside. That makes sense.
Yeah, that one does trips all the time. He uses a PC sound card that has an optical audio output, and he uses an optical audio cable to connect to a receiver that powers the speakers. Overall, he says he has extremely low noise floor, almost completely inaudible, but isn't quite dead silent. So where in that long signal chain from the electrical outlet all the way to speakers would that last remaining bit of noise be coming from? Where in the signal chain do you pick up that noise, and where would you have to place a filter in order to eliminate it? All right, there's a couple of things you can do here. It's plugged into a receiver. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to check your receiver. So turn it to an input that doesn't have anything in it.
Okay. Or heck, you can just unplug everything from the receiver except for your speakers and the power cable. Everything else unplugged. And
then listen.
Yeah, listen to nothing. Listen to silence.
Silence. Yeah, don't play anything. Just say, if you still hear it, it's the receiver.
And that's almost certainly where it is.
I'm like 99% sure that's where it's coming from.
I've never come across an amplifier, an audio amplifier,
that doesn't have at least a little bit.
No noise floor at all.
Yeah.
Like, so even the ATIs that I'm a really big fan of, if you press your ear up against your tweeter, there's still a very slight little hiss.
Right.
So it's almost certainly just the amplifiers in your receiver. But could it be anything else?
Yeah.
Could he do anything about it?
No. Well, I mean, no.
I mean, if it's the amplifiers in the, I suppose if your receiver has pre-outs, you could try an even quieter amplifier, but don't expect literal dead silence from any amplifier. This is
one of those situations where, well, okay. The other thing I thought that it could be, and first of all, the Monster Power thing, that's not doing nothing.
Nah.
I don't think your PC sound card, because it's all connected by optical, is doing anything. I don't think there's anything.
No, optical certainly isn't sending. I mean, everything upstream of your amplifiers could add little bits of noise here and there, and by the time all of that noise adds up and gets to the amplifier will amplify that noise along with the rest of the signal. But you said you have an almost completely inaudible noise floor already, which means that indicates everything upstream of your amplifiers is already very quiet. There's essentially nothing you can do to the rest of your signal.
The only other thing that came to my mind when I was looking at this question was, is your content when you're listening to it, is the dead spaces between your content actually silent?
Right.
Because there are plenty of recordings that I have, CDs, DVDs, whatever, that the dead space is not dead quiet. There's still a little bit of hiss in the background of that recording.
Sure.
And when you press stop, you hear it go away.
Right.
So that was to me, that's really the only other possible culprit that I could think of.
Now, I have a recommendation for Travis, which is I think Travis should start listening to a lot of vinyl.
Oh yeah, you get real used to it.
Because then when you go back to this, you'll be like, there's no noise at all.
Okay, so what could he do? The only other thing I think he could do, theoretically, I mean, first of all, you could just turn the volume down until you can't hear it
Well,
anymore.
no, because the noise floor is still, I mean, the noise floor is inherent to the amplifiers. I'm almost certain of it.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying though. But if you turn I see what you're saying. It would be the same no matter what.
Yeah, the noise floor is going to be the same no matter what the volume level. There's one thing you could go track down one of the old Panasonic receivers that used genuinely digital amplifiers. Now those things were dead silent until anything started playing. Then they weren't perfectly linear and they weren't perfect amplifiers. But up to that moment, when it was silence. They were dead silent. No,
harder to drive speakers could be, like if you have a speaker that's particularly hard to drive, then that hiss won't make it through.
Right. Yeah. If they're super efficient, you'll hear the hiss more. Yeah.
So if you got harder to drive speakers, perhaps something that's that takes a lot of amplifier power.
Yeah.
That'd be about the only way.
Very inefficient. Yeah, that could be a way. But I think pursuing perfection is ruining an excellent experience, because what he described is already excellent, but he wants perfection. And there's really, I mean, I suppose there's theoretically such a thing, but what you've got is about as good as it gets, Travis.
Michael on Twitter. Michael Hurst mentioned that when we use an up mixer like DTS Neural X, we like to use the game mode variant rather than the movie or music variant. So he gave it a try and he was shocked pleasantly by the results. Why does DTS Neural X in game mode sound so much better? It obviously sounded clearer to him with better delineation and no distracting change in timbre like in the other modes or other up mixers he's tried previously. How and why? Well, I mean, I think Rob's talked about it enough times, but basically the game mode is trying to make each channel as distinct as possible. So it's tending to do as little to the signal as it possibly can. Why is that? Because gamers want to be able to hear if something is behind them very clearly, so they know
pinpoint directions.
Yeah, and people who are watching movies or maybe music, they have a different. They would or maybe prefer a slightly different experience where it's a little bit more smeared, a little bit more diffuse, and those modes are great for those experiences. But those of us that really want to hear everything the way that it was originally mixed, and maybe have a little bit more clarity out of our channels, like the game mode.
Yeah, any of the up mixers, what they're doing, they're taking the original signal, analyzing that, deciding some sounds are going to go into other speaker channels that didn't exist in the original signal, whether they're overheads or ones that are behind you, or if it's a stereo signal, all of your speakers are getting sounds that were never in the original signal to begin with. The game mode in the DTS Neural X or DTS Neo X is simply saying, okay, I've analyzed the signal, these sounds are going to get played out of these different speakers, but they're only going to get played out of those speakers. I'm not going to duplicate those sounds or add reverb to any of those sounds. They're just, these are the sounds I'm sending to these speakers, and only those speakers get to play them. So it's a more distinct, more discrete, and that eliminates things like if you have two different speakers playing the same sound slightly out of phase, that can alter the timbre, or you might get intermodulation distortion. So it eliminates all those things, and it sounds clean and distinct and precise.
So having been so impressed by DTS Neural X game mode, he tried listening to some other formats like Dolby Digital Plus 5.1 from Netflix, just in Dolby Digital Plus listening mode, but he activated the listening mode by pressing the game button on his receiver's remote rather than the movie or music or pure buttons. But that didn't produce any noticeable difference. How come? I gotta admit, I'm a little confused by this question because I don't know what he means.
So, when you're watching a content and on your, like you have Denon, on yours, there's the listening mode buttons. There's movie, music, game, and pure listening mode buttons. You press any of those and you'll get a list of all the available listening modes under that button, right? So you have the movie list of listening modes, the music list of listening modes, and so on. So all of them, movie, music, and game, not the pure, but movie, music, and game, will have just the straight decoding for whatever you're listening to. If you're listening to a Dolby True HD will be one of the available listening modes.
Right.
Dolby Digital will be one of the listening modes.
If the original signal at that point, it's just
you're just listening to the straight signal.
The straight signal.
If that's the listening mode you're choosing, is just the straight decode, there is no difference between music, movie, and game.
It should be all the same. Yeah.
They're all exactly the same. Yeah.
So he asks, why didn't you try this a long time ago? I don't know, dude. When you gotta look yourself in the mirror every morning and ask yourself the question, why didn't we do what Tom? Why didn't do what Tom and Rob
I
suggested?
know. Yeah, there you go. Sometimes it
You're
just
going
takes
to have a
time.
very long, very, very, very depressed
You
life
get,
now that you've gone through this with us.
we're gonna be the guys on AVS. We're gonna be like, you've got to go back and listen to every episode we ever did because the answer's in there, man.
It's in there.
You just, you know,
It's in there.
we're
Because
not,
sometimes you
we're
need
not
to
going to
hear
say it
something
again.
enough
The time it
times
took me to
before
say
you're like,
this is as long as it would have taken me to repeat the answer. But no, go back and do it all again, man.
It's not like I don't have the page bookmarked and could just post the link for
Use
you,
the search.
or I could copy paste my answer from before.
Yeah,
No,
well, yeah, no.
I'm gonna berate you online because I am very small and I feel very bad about that, and I would like to make you feel small as well. Anywho, any opinion on which are the very best Atmos upward firing modules? None of them. And what would be our go-to choice for Atmos speakers? In-ceiling model, on-ceiling model, whatever works in the room. If I had my choice, it would be in-ceiling.
Okay.
You know, I think that it just would, you know, it's just
It's
a little bit
less visual. And
yeah. But upward firing modules, I think one of the best ones, kind of universally have been praised, have been the Klipsch. The Klipsch ones have been very well received, and I would have no problems with recommending those.
Yeah, Klipsch has a couple. They have one in their Reference Premier series and one in their less expensive Reference series. I've heard the Reference Premier one. Up until very recently, they were the ones I thought did the best job. I haven't heard the less expensive Reference series one, so I can't comment on that. But recently, I heard the PSB ones.
Oh, PSB.
And they are my new favorites for upward firing modules. And interestingly, PSB is the only company that I know of for sure. Definitive Technology might have come close, but I think PSB is the only one who actually followed to the letter everything Dolby recommended for building an upward firing module. And it's almost as though Dolby knew what they were talking about because it works. I know.
Weird.
Who would have thought that the people who invented it actually made one that works really well? So I like the PSBs, but they're not super inexpensive. They're over $500, I believe, for the pair of them. But yeah, as far as upward firing, but none of them are as good as just having speakers up on your ceiling. I do like the full cal little birds because, you know, they're easy to mount and you can pivot them and point them in any direction. And
I know, but like, you know, it seems sort of silly to I mean, you can like pivot them in any direction. Yeah, you're going to pivot them until they fire straight down.
Straight down.
I mean, that's really the only pivot.
That's what I'd recommend.
But
they're easy to mount. I like them. For in-ceilings, for just a general recommendation, I like the Outdoor Speaker Depot MK650s because they're $100 a pair, and for Atmos speakers, they're more than fine.
Right.
So I like those.
Jack thinks that maybe he's just an old fuddy-duddy now, and maybe he's no longer hip or whatever, but what's the deal with chain brand speakers? Okay, dude, seriously. Are you trying to get us in trouble here?
Oh, he's trying to get us in trouble.
This is like such... It's not clickbait. It's like rage bait, right? You're going to get people so mad at us because every time we talk about the speaker brand, somebody
finds it on YouTube
and just
can of
gets
worms.
super angry. Anyways, there are people on forums absolutely raving about them, but Jack hadn't ever heard of them before, and for some reason, they just seem a bit sketchy to him, like having $27,000 a pair of speakers on the list on the website, but only for pre-order. You know what? That whole page, if you look at that page that has that every single one of those, that's just a Photoshop render, dude. There is no actual speakers on that page. Everything is
then the actual ones that are under the chain brand. I think one of them is available for sale right now, but the others are on back order.
The A series, something or whatever. But anyways, so who's putting down the pause on that? He asks. Are they legit? The actual chain brand speakers, which are quite affordable at $340 a pair or $880 pair for the bookshelf or tower, respectively, really are really so much better than anything else close to that prior price point. Like people in the forum are raving. Okay, so. There is a phenomenon online, and I don't think it has a name, but it should have one. And what happens is a manufacturer of, I think, probably any product at all. I think within every product, every type of product that's out there, there is a company that somehow makes this happen. And what they do is they get a following, and that following is rabidly obsessed with them. And one of the things that they do is they talk a good game, and they make a lot of promises, and they're very exciting and they're very dynamic, and they offer discounts if you pre-order.
Mm-hmm.
And then they collect a whole bunch of money. They ship some speakers or some products, and the people who get them love them, and then they stop making speakers and they abscond with the money. Now, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes they turn into legit companies. A company that started very much this way was Axiom Audio.
Mm-hmm.
Axiom Audio had a massive following, and people were absolutely raving about their speakers, and they sold for a huge value, and you got a lot of value for your speakers, and they slowly turned into a, they just grew and got bigger and put out more products, and everything started getting more and more expensive until now people are like, oh yeah, Axiom, that's just another speaker company. They weren't always that way. They were just like this. The difference here is that this company has a long history of changing its name, doing this thing, putting out, getting people excited about them, putting out some speakers, and then disappearing, and then coming back as a different name.
Yep.
And you know what? This may be the time they go legit. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, well, possibly
you're not
because
my money. That's for sure.
Craig, the guy who, so it started out as Chase. It was Chase something. I think the Chase Home Theater came later, so it was Chase something. I think it was just Chase Subwoofers originally, and then it was Chase something else. So anyway, that guy is the one who was mostly responsible for opening a company, getting pre-orders, delivering some products, and then closing down, and then wash and repeat. Eventually became Chain when he merged with another guy who was importing speakers from China and selling them under his brand name, and they merged together. Well,
Swan speakers, I think, right?
Well, Swan has been around all over the place. I mean, they were back with AV123 as well, which is another one of these stories.
Yep.
And like similar to AV123, the actual speakers, if you got them, were often quite good.
Yeah,
they were legitimately often quite good speakers. That's not
Rocket. Was it Rocket? The Rocket 123 or whatever they were speakers. They were great speakers. I liked them.
So that is often not the problem. The speakers themselves, if you get them, is often not the problem. But I wouldn't touch Chain with a 10-foot pole. Now, maybe they're fine this time because Craig is gone. He's not part of this anymore. And now they're Chain Music Cinema because they ran through like every other name. They were Chain Home Theater. They were Chain Music. They were Chain Home Theater. They were Chain Sound. They were Chain something else. But now they're Chain Music Cinema because they were running out of URLs.
Right.
And maybe this is the time. But you know what? It's not a good sign when everything's out of stock and everything's for pre-order. Not a great sign again.
I went to their forums, and it's very, very, very familiar. All the talk in there and the people getting excited. It's an echo chamber of people being very excited. And you know what? If you got their speakers and you love them, I am very happy for you.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Again, the speakers themselves are probably fine.
Yeah. I do have a problem with people asking me if I think they should buy their speakers and getting mad when I say, you're probably going to get ripped off. I mean, you might not.
It's not as though there aren't alternatives from really reputable companies in this price range. There are alternatives.
Go to Amazon. Okay, go to Amazon and read a review on almost any product. Okay, and you will find that somewhere down the line, somebody has gotten a defective unit and is unhappy with it.
Sure.
All right, that happens. Right. So when I buy a product, I'm looking at all these reviews and I'm kind of weighing in my mind which ones are good, which ones are bad. How many people are having negative experiences versus how many people have positive experiences. And when you're looking down and there's like 2 or 3 people who are like, this is the best thing I've ever had. And then there's 16 people saying, I never got mine, or it was broken, or it was an empty box, or I mean,
I had a hell of a time getting any kind of service or getting any answers to my emails.
Then you just stay away from that product, and that's what we're telling you.
Yep,
that's what we're telling you. We're telling you that some people are very excited about them because they got good products that they loved, and there's a lot of people out there that are either waiting, hoping, or mad.
Yeah, and they have always based it on the fear of missing out thing. Here's the pre-order price. Don't miss out on it. These are the greatest speakers ever. They get somebody out there to give them a positive review, and they take it on and then wash and rinse and repeat. Yeah.
So sorry if you're a Chain fan. I'm sorry.
If you've got their speakers, great, and you're happy with them, great, fantastic.
Even better.
Good on you.
Even better. But you should share them with the people.
Given how many alternatives there are from reputable companies, no thanks.
Yeah. Neil says he's a big fan of the podcast, and he's been listening since Dina was around. Almost a Dana. Oh, I'm getting tired. He thinks his current setup already sounds good, and he's never been unhappy with it, so he doesn't know if his room actually has any big problems. But whenever we talk about acoustic panels, you can't help but wonder if things could be better. So he dipped his toe by ordering a single GIK 242 art panel that he placed on his back wall, and he thinks it made a positive difference. So now he's wondering if adding more panels, this time on the side walls, would further improve things. He already has bookcases that come up to hip height on both walls and back on both side walls and the back wall, with absorption panels placed above those have any further impact on the sound. Now I'm looking at his room now, and you guys, if you're on YouTube, you should be looking at it too. He's got a couch that's almost on the back. Okay, on the back wall there are bookshelves, and computers, multiple computers.
It's like a monitors anyway.
Old Mac thing with the big fat base thing, and then in front of that, probably just enough space to get down there and look for the DVDs that are down there, is a couch, a single couch with maybe 3 seats maybe. And then on the front wall he's got some speakers, and on the side walls he's got
bookcases as well,
bookshelf as well, and the tweeter height on his speakers looks like it would be just probably in line with the top of the bookshelves.
Yeah.
So
be right about there. And it appears as though he's using a projector just on a blank wall. It doesn't appear to have a screen.
Yeah, I don't see a screen anywhere.
And it is carpeted, so he's got at least that much. He's got carpet.
So he's looking at places on this side walls kind of above the bookshelves where he might put them. Would these make a difference up there?
I mean, not a ton to your first reflections because your bookcase has already taken that. And you know what? They're doing an okay job because they're acting as diffusers.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. This room, I feel like bass trapping might be where I would put my money as far as
or on those angled parts of the walls, because those always create interesting reflections.
Right.
Because he's got kind of a chamfered ceiling up there. So
right. So I feel like if you could get some bass trapping in here, you might be. Now it doesn't look like he's got many corners left. To be honest with you, there is the side surrounds look like they're towers that are in the the rear corners.
Got towers for side surrounds. Yep.
And in the front left there's a sub. It looks like in the back right there's also a sub, and the bookshelves go all the way to the front. It looks like on the right wall. So I don't see a whole lot of room for bass trapping, but really, I wouldn't be thinking about the first reflection points as much as I would be thinking about just getting some absorption up here.
Yeah, overall reducing the reverberation in the room. This is one of those cases where it's less about the distinct reflection and more about the overall. There might be some echoing in this room, although having the carpeting, having the bookcases acting as diffusers, it's not as bad as it might seem. Because we look at a big blank wall and we're like, it might be reflections in here, but you've got some absorption, you got some diffusion, so maybe a little bit.
I don't hate the idea of putting stuff on the ceiling or on those kind of angled walls.
Yeah.
I don't hate that idea. I also don't hate the idea of if you could straddle something like right above the bookshelves and stuff, and that like where 3 corners meet.
Yeah.
On its front of the wall, or I don't know if the back of the wall has it. It doesn't look like it has it. So, I mean, it really would be nice. I mean, how much difference would you notice? I don't know. You may not notice that much. And it really comes down to this whole, I never really noticed it, and it sounds pretty good to me statement.
And yet, when he put the one panel behind him, he's like, I noticed a difference with that, and it was a good one, So,
I mean, I think putting a couple of more up here, maybe 4, I think.
Because I'm thinking, again, I sort of hold to that 30-70 rule about 30% of your room being absorptive, and I think you're a little shy of that right now, just eyeballing it, but I would imagine if you calculated your total surface area, that right now you're a little shy of about 30% of your room being absorptive, so I think a little bit more in here would probably be beneficial, but I wouldn't expect a life-altering difference.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. He's got, and I didn't notice it until I saw the picture. He's actually got surround backs that are directly behind his couch. Now they're far enough away from his side surrounds where there's a physical difference, but the angle wise, they're kind of pretty close. I would suggest trying a 5-point, I guess 2 setup and seeing how that affects things too. You could definitely put a little panel like move your surrounds in a little bit and put a panel like sort of in that corner right there to catch that sort of first reflection off of that wall, and also just do a little bit of bass trapping in there. I like that idea, but
Okay.
and turning off the back surrounds and then seeing how that sounds. So that's
All
my
right.
other suggestion.
Sure.
He used the Odyssey editor app to have a look at his before and after results. He thinks it looks like Odyssey did a nice job, but he says he has an untrained eye. So what do we think? Dude, you don't have to have a trained eye to see a flat line. The flatter the line, the better it did. So I'm not sure which one's the before and the after here, Rob. So you're gonna have to help me out with that.
Well, the green is the before and the red is the
green
after.
is before.
There.
These are just
Yeah,
different.
These are just different speakers. He
okay.
put one in for every single one of his speakers,
You got that
and
same
similar results.
that I was seeing in mine, that mid-range dip up there.
Mid-range compensation dip. You can turn that off in the editor app if you want to.
Yeah, and then the rest of it looks pretty good to me. I mean, I like it.
Now, I mean, this is only the frequency response, though, so we're not seeing what's happening in the time domain, and that's really what the acoustic panels are for, is to reduce any ringing, reverberation, that type of thing. So your frequency response is looking darn good in any of these speakers. You know, we don't have to go through every single one of them to get the idea that your frequency response is looking quite good. So I'm not too concerned about that. Again, if you did add more absorption, I think you might notice a slight but not earth-shattering difference. It would be a positive change. Yeah.
So it says GIC offers several different panel options. They've got smaller spot panels, regular 242 panels, 242 panels with a scatter plate, and their alpha and impression panels that seem similar to the 242 panels plus the scatter plate, but the diffusion is all funky looking and visible on the outside.
They are kind of cool looking, some of those patterns.
I've not looked at that. I would just, he asked what we recommend. I would just recommend getting some regular old panels. I don't think you need any of the scatter plate stuff, to be honest with you.
You've got diffusion already.
Diffusion already in this room, so I would just get the regular old panels. And get them the color that you think is pleasing, or
get more art ones if you want art ones. And since we are recommending just regular panels, if you want art ones that are a little bit less expensive than GIC, check out Acoustimac, because they have printed panels that are a little bit less expensive than GIC's, and just absorption, they'll do just as well.
All right, we're going to do this next question, and then we're done.
Okay.
Chris was running a 5.1.4 setup using his Denon X4300H receiver and his Ascend Acoustic Sierra 2 speakers up front as his LCR. He recently moved, now space to expand to 7.1.4. He already has 11 speakers, so why not?
Yeah.
But the X4300H only has 9 amps, so welcome to my world, sir. I did the same thing. So what's a good low-cost 2-channel amp to power his surround back speakers? It's hold on a second, let me look. The Parts Express APA 100.
Except that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh.
Now it's the APA 102, which is a Class D, which for your surround back is totally fine. I have no problem with that. But there is the Audio Source Amp 100, which is also on sale right now for $100. So there's no difference in price. And that's a Class AB. So I kind of like the Class AB still a little bit better.
I do too.
Just on a general purpose type of thing. That's going to open a whole can of worms, isn't it? Oh, well, more questions for not even next week. Next week is going to be all questions that we got this week. I can almost guarantee it. But yeah, Audio Source Amp 100 or the Dayton Audio APA 102. Those are both great $100 2-channel amps that will drive your surround back or your top rear speakers absolutely perfectly.
So he remembers the horror story about this fellow CR2 owner who damaged his ribbon tweeters, possibly due to an insufficient amplifier power. Should he be scared? How far away are you sitting? Oh, he's going to say his front speakers will be roughly 10 feet from his seat, and he pretty much never listens at full reference volume. But if he wants to eliminate all anxiety about his amplifiers ever possibly clipping, what's a good 3-channel amp that he could that would totally have him covered as far as his CR2s go? Let's see here. We've got Emotiva.
Sure.
You could buy something from them, pretty much just about anything.
And I would recommend, since the Sierra 2s can handle 150 watts continuously, they can handle more peak power than that, but continuously 150 watts. So Emotiva has a nice model called the A5175 that goes for
5 amps, doesn't it?
It's 5 amps, but it's $800. Well, they don't have an inexpensive 3-channel, right? They've got the XPA 3, but that's $1,200. Now, granted, that's like 275 watts per channel, but you don't need that many watts per channel, and it's $1,200. $800 for the 5175, and then, hey, you power 2 other of your speakers with it. Or, you know what? That's 5-channel amp, so it could power the front 3 and the ones he has to power externally, right? So do it all. Although you'd be powering the fronts externally anyway, so whatever. That's the one I would get from Emotiva. $800, 5175. But if you want like the ultimate monoprice, Monolith. They've got a 3-channel amp. The Monolith 3 is $1,100. Total overkill.
Let's say, what is it, $1,100? So $300 more for 2 less channels of amplification.
That's right, but more wattage per channel that you don't actually need.
Right.
Yeah, so kind of tough to make that case, but it would eliminate all fear of ever.
There's all sorts of amps you can go out there. You just buy directly from ATI. You could really pay some money for that.
Yes, but honestly, I still feel really bad. I'm forgetting that fellow's name who had the Sierra 2s where the ribbon tweeter tore. But that is the one and only case I have ever come across. I've gone looking because it was a fear. I own those speakers too. It was a fear of mine. I went looking and it hasn't happened to other people. I don't know what happened in his case. It seems like it was some kind of anomaly. Ascend stood behind it and sent him replacement ribbons. So I don't think it's something you need to fear. I don't think you even need to do this. 10 feet away really shouldn't be a problem. But hey, that 5175 for $800 is a very nice amplifier, so wouldn't better than a kick in the teeth.
The amp you just suggested too. The
audio source.
One. Yeah, the audio source. You can use that for his front 2 channels.
60 watts.
It won't be a center channel, but whatever.
That's right.
All right, that's it for this week. Who do we have left over? We got lots. I know.
We have 12 people left. Like I say, next week might be all remaining for this week.
We had 28 questions on.
We had 28 questions on the list this week. That is the most we've ever had. It was 28 pages that I wrote up this week. So
yes. So when I pushed the podcast back by a day, Rob was like, "Thank you." Thank you.
I was not upset about that. I mean, honestly, I didn't have to fill in all 28 questions because there was no way we were going to answer 28 questions in one podcast. But let's go through. We have Jorge, Jason, Andrew, who wrote to us on Facebook, Biv, who also wrote to us on Facebook, Corey. I guess I should be saying last initials, shouldn't I? No,
I don't care.
Corey B. Dre W.
Because there's so many Dre's that rock.
There's
the doctor. There's this dude.
Yep. Clara R, who wrote to me on Twitter. Russell T, who wrote on Facebook. Nick, who is in Australia, and I didn't get a last initial, but he's the Nick in Australia. Lior M, Fred R, and scrolling past some pictures there as well, we have Daniel C. I'm pretty sure that's an entire podcast.
That's probably a podcast. Oh, we'll get you guys next week, and anybody else got a question, you'll be the week after, I suppose.
We'll attempt. We will get to all questions. We don't leave anybody behind, but it's first in, first out. And you're on the list.
So if you want your question answered, just email us at question@avrant.com. We want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Robert for going to www.avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and leaving us a PayPal donation. Thank you very much, Robert.
Yeah, Robert, thank you very much for that donation.
Thank you to our 61 patrons over at patreon.com, especially Jorge, who is one of our patrons. They the monthly Patreon takes some money from them and gives part of it to us. So thank you very much for your donations. Yeah, that is patreon.com/AVRant podcast. If you would like to sign up, thanks so much to our 61 patrons, and thank you, Jorge, for being one of them. I also want to thank Michael for letting Shu know that he bought some speakers because some subwoofers because of us, and we want to thank Ash to replace the 2 he had before. Thank Ash for creating our new 600 logo. Yeah, Michael, congrats on that purchase, and Ash, thank you so much. We always love Ash's work; it's great stuff. Yeah. All right, for AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry, and I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.